An entire army of the undead just rolled up on his turf. Their leader figured it was gonna be an easy sweep. Too bad he didn't expect our boy to bust out a broken skill. Just swinging a basic scythe, he unleashes mass decapitation. Next thing you know, dozens of heads are flying right through the air, clearing the battlefield out like he's just mowing the lawn. So how's some random kid get this ridiculously OP? Back on Earth, he was just another wage slave constantly getting pushed around by his boss. His only real skill in life was trimming trees and chopping weeds. Just a loner with a tragic past and zero future prospects. That all changes the second some weird rabbit knocks on his door, hitting isekai straight into a brutal new world where it's survival of the fittest. But against all odds, our guy ends up pulling the rarest card in the game, becoming the apostle for the goddess of abundance. Except his system came with a pretty weird little glitch. Instead of harvesting crops, his main skill is all about harvesting heads. Now, rocking a deadly scythe, he's about to turn terrifying monsters into fertilizer and build the wealthiest, most powerful faction in this entire world. Get ready to meet the most OP farmer of all time. Right near a volcano, a starving dinosaur is out on the prowl, but the peace and quiet shatters the second someone steps into its turf. 3 warriors, just slowly making their way through the thick jungle. Out of nowhere, the beast drops right behind one of them, catching the guy entirely off guard. It lets out this massive roar and lunges straight at his 2 buddies. Looking the monster dead in the eye, the warrior shifts into his stance, ready to throw down. He unleashes this overwhelming aura that just swallows up the whole area. Then, he dashes forward at breakneck speed. Spinning like a tornado, he preps his blade for the strike. The sword slices through the air, landing a clean, heavy hit on the beast. One flawless swing and the monster's tail goes flying. Landing with some serious swagger, he just stands there admiring his handiwork. The beast just splits right down the middle and drops dead. Game over. Flashing a cocky smirk, the guy strikes a victory pose right on top of the carcass. Cut to the middle of the city, where this giant billboard is broadcasting that epic fight to the whole block. Glued to the screen, our MC gulps hard, dreaming of living that kind of badass life. Seeing the recruitment ad, he's just mesmerized by the promise of greatness. But the hype doesn't last long, thanks to a heavy hand suddenly grabbing his shoulder. Jumping out of his skin, he turns around to find his boss screaming at him about being behind schedule. The old man complains that kids these days always have their heads in the clouds, and our boy quickly apologizes. Barking orders, the boss tells him to go clear out the vines, sending the poor kid scrambling. Terrified of messing up his gig, he can hear the guy still grumbling in the background. Scared to death of getting fired, he flashes back to the days when problems were actually solved with your fists. Gripping his sickle tight, he starts hacking away at the weeds at an insane speed. In the blink of an eye, the overgrowth is nothing but shreds scattered across the dirt. Noticing how quiet it got, the old man turns around and is left utterly speechless. Moving like a ghost, the MC clears the entire field before his boss even processes what just happened. The guy just freezes, jaw practically hitting the floor at the sheer ridiculousness of it. I mean, mountains of trash bags filled with weeds are already piled up in the corner. Blown away by the hustle, the boss praises the kid's grit and tells him to take a break. Walking down the street, he wonders if becoming a dispatcher is actually his true calling. Here's where we find out that Earth has turned into a dead game with no dev support, running out of energy for good, and humanity's only shot at survival is to seek refuge in another world. Down on the sidewalks, people are hooked watching the heroes throwing down on the big screens. Frowning, our boy understands the heavy burden of this harsh reality all too well. After all, it's the dispatchers who keep the planet breathing using the energy they bring back from the outside. Stopping right in his tracks, he stares off into the distance with this fierce look in his eyes. Without a second thought, all his previous doubts vanish, replaced by pure conviction. Gripping his sickle hard, the metal actually seems to come alive for a split second. Gazing out at the city ruins, he wonders if there's any room left for a guy like him. Kicking off Chapter 1, we follow these dispatchers trying to survive in a dying world. Letting out a heavy sigh, the kid starts wandering down this mostly empty street. Strolling through the alleyways, he's just hoping to score some kind of side hustle for tomorrow. Arriving at a packed building, he stops and takes a deep breath, dead on his feet. The neon sign reads Reunion Center with the usual massive crowd swarming the place. Pushing through the mob, he excuses himself and calls out that he's up next. Up at the counter, the clerk verifies his name as Oh Chansu and he just nods along. Full of hope, he asks for an update on the search for his family, but the worker just keeps typing away. Staring blankly at his monitor, the clerk doesn't show a single ounce of emotion, then drops the worst news. His funds dried up, meaning the search is officially off. Cutting to the chase, the guy gives it to him straight, saying they aren't running a charity here, shooting him an icy glare. He repeats that the money is gone and tells the kid to get lost. Right then, another desperate dude slams his hands on the desk, begging for any kind of lead. Someone in the back yells that everyone's suffering and nobody gets VIP treatment around here. So, our boy starts climbing the city steps, leaving all that chaos in the rear view. Reaching the top, he stops in front of this beat-up, rusty old door. Stepping inside, the MC calls out that he's home, kicking off his shoes into a corner. But the frustration really hits him, and he just punts an empty can that was in his way. The thing goes skittering across the cold floor until it hits the entryway. Cue the flashback. A tiny foot resting on a leather soccer ball. Remembering back when his dad was a top-tier returnee and loved kicking the ball around with him. Except the planet went into full crisis mode, forcing the old man to head off to another world out of nowhere, clutching the ball to his chest. The kid feels all that leftover warmth washing over him. In the memory, little Chansu is rocking this massive smile, having the time of his life with his dad. But that joy quickly fades into a teary-eyed stare, already sensing what was coming next. Now standing alone on the field, his cries for his dad just fade into the wind, waiting for a return that never happened. In another memory, his mom squeezes his hand with this sweet, heartbreaking look, promising to go find her husband. She tells him to be a good boy and wait, saying it'd only take a few days. A single tear rolls down, carrying the heavy weight of an endless weight. Snapping back to the present, our MC curls up on the floor, letting that feeling of abandonment eat away at him, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth as he realizes his parents' faces are starting to blur in his own mind. Suddenly, this blinding flash of light crashes through his window, catching him completely off guard. Peeking through the blinds, he tries to figure out what kind of wild light show is lighting up his room. The sight is mind-blowing. You can see this massive energy explosion reflecting right in his eyes. A giant pillar of golden light tears through the sky, crashing down with an unreal amount of force. Then the boom hits, and the shockwave sends the kid flying into the wall like a ragdoll, smacking his head super hard. Even the wall clock ends up shattered on the floor. Sliding down to the ground, the poor guy is dizzy, his vision going blurry. Passing out slowly, he still spots these tiny specks of light floating around like magic. Laying there on the floor, he groans in pain, having zero clue about what just went down. Sitting up while grabbing the back of his neck, he swears his skull might actually be cracked. Then his phone vibrates in his pocket, chiming that it's exactly 8 o'clock. On the screen, there's a breaking alert about returnee A dropping the bomb that he's retiring. Reading through the article, he sees the hero beating himself up for failing to save anyone. Over on the TV, the guy looks absolutely wrecked, admitting he's lost his edge as a dispatcher. Watching the broadcast, you can tell the veteran is practically begging the public not to give up hope. But the reality is brutal. With so few people left, the odds of a new hero showing up are practically zero. Sitting on his bed, the MC gets pretty bummed out by the failed mission and the hero throwing in the towel. Out of the blue, there's a knock at the door, which throws him off, wondering who'd show up this late. Going to check it out, he knows for a fact he wasn't expecting any company. Peeking through the peephole, he spots a hand holding up a tablet with his own profile on the screen. Then this weird voice casually asks if, "Oh, Chansu is home." Looking through the crack, the kid is highly suspicious of this whole setup. Throwing the door wide open, he's face to face with a talking rabbit, assuming it's just some kind of prank. Seeing its eyes glowing bright blue, he scans this bizarre little creature from head to toe. The shock hits him so hard that the poor guy jumps back and almost eats dirt again. Struggling to process it, he starts losing his mind. A chatty bunny saying good morning, but the little guy tells him to chill, saying he brings good news and there's no reason to panic. Holding up a piece of paper, the rabbit smiles and congratulates him, announcing he's just been drafted as a dispatcher. Short-circuiting his brain, the kid immediately asks what kind of crazy talk this is. Turning around, the little guy says he gets why the kid's so confused, but promises this is the real deal, and suggests taking the chat somewhere else. Walking down the stark white hallway, the guide asks if the kid's got any special skills. Hearing that pretty much everyone has some kind of talent definitely kills his mood, so he just admits his only real trick is pruning trees and tending to flowers. Mind blown, the rabbit yells out, asking if our MC has zero clue how lucky he is. Quickly pulling himself together, he brushes it off, saying everything happens for a reason. Hyping him up, he makes it clear the kid was chosen. End of story. Eyes locked in, our boy feels like his time to flip the script has finally arrived. Staring down our hero, the creature tells him to head inside to hash out the rest. Standing in front of this massive gate, the MC is genuinely awestruck by the sheer scale of it. Resting his hand on the door, he can feel the big leagues waiting just on the other side. Except he pushes with everything he's got and it doesn't even budge. Like moving climbing a mountain. Watching him struggle, the rabbit just points to a tiny doggy door over in the corner. Completely dumbfounded, he asks if that little hole is the actual entrance, figuring it's a joke. Furious, he demands to know how he's supposed to fit, while the bunny casually mentions he slipped right through. Deflated instantly, the kid threatens to just pack it up and head home. Stopping him in his tracks, the creature baits him, asking if he's really going to throw it all away. Hitting him right where it hurts, he reminds the boy life's already chewed him up, and this is a one-time offer. With a sly little smirk, the creature tells him not to take it personally, then puts on this whole act, crying over him giving up such a hard-earned spot. Backed into a corner, the poor guy swallows his pride and starts crawling through the flap. Squeezing through, regret hits him hard as he thinks about the humiliation he just signed up for. From the other side, the guide rushes him, and our boy grunts out that he's already at his limit. But once he finally pops out, the sight leaves his jaw on the floor. Looking around, he points out the room is completely basic, leaving the rabbit looking pretty awkward. Sitting at the desk, the guide explains there's a world tailor-made just for Chansu. All fired up, he whips out a brochure for the block territory conquest world. Catching that weird name, the creature asks if he's ever heard of the place. So he admits he hasn't, asking if it's some kind of creepy underground thing. Chuckling a bit, the kid listens as the bunny swears it's the hottest realm out there right now. Thinking it over, he remembers that returnee A used to serve a deity too. Hearing that, the rabbit swears up and down this place has zero connection to those tragedies. Flipping a gold coin, the boy asks which god is running the show over there. Putting on this mysterious look, the guide explains, you don't pick your god, fate does. Except, if he seals the deal right now, he gets a crazy rare chance to draw for one. Shuffling the deck like a pro, the furry little die sets the stage for a luck draw. Fanning out the cards, he throws down the gauntlet to see if the kid's got the guts. Heart pounding, the MC admits he hasn't got a clue which one's the winner. Staring at the back of the deck, he feels the heavy weight of a choice that could flip his whole life upside down. Piling on the pressure, the rabbit warns him this kind of freebie is ridiculously rare. Nodding along, he knows damn well a shot like this won't come knocking twice. Flashing back to his childhood, he can't figure out why his hands are shaking so bad right now. Mustering up some courage, he grabs a card and yells that this is the one. Pulling with all his might, he even winces just trying to rip it free from the spread. But the second he flips it, his eyes nearly pop out of his skull at the artwork. Out of nowhere, this purple energy bursts out and a giant skeleton spawns right in the room. The shadow just keeps growing, making a poor guy scream his lungs out at the creepy sight. Shivering on the floor, the kid hears the rabbit ask why he's making such a huge scene. Scared out of his mind, he wonders what kind of god needs an intro that edgy. Revealing the God of Injustice card, rocking a 44% drop rate. Freezing up, the kid begs for a mulligan, and the bunny casually lets him take another swing. But pulling the second one brings the horror right back, leaving him stunned by his own trash tier luck. Squeezing his eyes shut, he focuses hard and yells that his luck's gotta change this time, only to flip it and scream, same exact god, just with a 45% rate. Panicking, he calls out the rigged RNG, but the creature shuts that down fast. Dead serious now, the rabbit promises the deck is clean and asks if they're clear. Taking a step back, the boy apologizes, feeling the vibe in the room get way heavier. Then the guide spreads the cards out again, warning him, last draw, make it count. Covering his face, our MC prays for literally anything else, just not that curse of a god. Keeping his eyes clammed shut, he keeps silently begging for better RNG. Suddenly, a bright green card starts glowing hard, leaving a trail of flower petals in the air. Shocked, the kid snatches it up and cheers that his luck finally came through. Reading the Goddess of Abundance title, he honestly finds the visual effects a little underwhelming. But here's the truth. The card is beyond rare, with drop rates next to nothing. Drooling over the goddess's artwork, the kid zones out until the bunny loses his patience. Fed up, the guide asks if he's planning on re-rolling again. Remembering that was his final pull, the boy asks what the next step is. Right away, the rabbit warns him, accept this and the trip is instant. No goodbyes. Hyping him back up, the creature calls it his golden ticket to becoming an OP returnee, claiming the whole world's going to respect him and that savior title is already in the bag. Telling the kid to think it over carefully, seeing as a brand new life is waiting right ahead. Eyes shining, our MC agrees on the spot, getting super emotional, because he knows all too well that staying here means going nowhere fast. His expression hardening, he looks back at all the garbage he's been through. Leaving the past behind, he realizes this choice is now or never. Riding that wave, a system prompt pops up confirming his pact with the Goddess of Abundance. and right after, it alerts him that the deity's true form is about to show up. Emerging from this soft light, the goddess appears, though her face is completely hidden in shadows. Welcomed by her, the kid just stands there like a statue, completely frozen, until the deity finally speaks up, already calling him her future dispatcher. In a flash, the scenery shifts, dropping him in this weirdly bright space. Still catching his breath, the poor guy tries to wrap his head around whether that was actually the goddess herself. But our huge grin breaks out, knowing with a sponsor like that, he's going to be unstoppable. Fired up, he asks where they're heading, and the rabbit praises the kid's solid pick. Except out of nowhere, this bizarre purple energy starts seeping up from the floor. It twists into a dark portal, and the guide calls the boy over, leaving him completely lost. Yelling for a timeout, he hears the rabbit ask what he's whining about now, terrified of that creepy black hole. The kid is told that portals don't have feelings. The bunny even tells him to appreciate the aesthetics. But our MC just sees a bottomless pit. Even so, he stares down the gate, drilling it into his head that there's no turning back. Puffing out his chest, he swears he's going to prove to the world he was born to shine. But without any warning, the creature kicks him right in the back, booting the poor guy straight into the portal. Getting sucked into the void, he curses the little guy out before vanishing completely. Watching the kid disappear, the rabbit just mutters that he'll be waiting for Chansu. Soon after, the creature starts wondering why he even got involved in this mess to begin with. Thinking it over, he figures maybe he just hasn't moved on from the old god, but quickly brushes it off. And deep inside the gate, a system window pops right into our hero's face, leaving him super confused. Holding this glowing tablet, the poor guy just wants to know what fresh madness this is. Reading some weird tip on the screen about domains, the kid's brain just breaks even more. Mind blown, the kid screams, finally realizing that drop rate percentage was actually the goddess's power level. Stepping out of the portal, he finds himself in this barren wasteland packed with dead trees. Annoyed by the late warning, he grumbles about getting scammed with a trash-tier goddess. Glancing around, the poor guy is just completely lost, staring at a bunch of busted-up ruins. Slumping down on the ground, he just stares out at this endless desert of rock and dust. Laughing through the pain, our MC just accepts his fate and mutters that he's completely screwed. Caught between laughing and crying, he yells out to the wind about how pathetic his whole situation really is. But right then, a green system window pops up in his face, flashing the title, Goddess of Abundance. Staring at the dry rocks, he sarcastically asks where exactly the abundance is hiding in this dead zone. Suddenly, the system chimes, opening up another green screen and leaving the kid scratching his head. Reading through the text, he finds out he's now an apostle and has to go around conquering different blocks. Spotting a typo right in the prompt, he realizes the game system here is held together by duct tape. Letting out a heavy sigh, the guy swallows his complaints and decides to explore the area just to track down this goddess. Catching a dark shape on the ground out of the corner of his eye, he whips around, having no clue what it is. Checking out the metal blade, he figures fate is just mocking him for finding a farming sickle out here of all places. Grabbing the tool, the poor guy finds it weird, but admits that at least it's a weapon he actually knows how to use. Except that brief moment of peace shatters when this purple aura flares up right behind him, scaring the life out of him. Spotting a shadow with glowing eyes, he starts stuttering, completely clueless about what kind of monster he's facing. Gripping his sickle tight, he figures the beast got the drop on him, and he's definitely not ready to die yet. Going all in, the kid raises his weapon to strike, but just hears this super adorable little squeak. Stopping his swing midair, he's left baffled by the whole bizarre situation. Then, it hits him. The big bad monster is actually just a tiny little hamster, shaking like a leaf. And as the little furball starts rubbing up against his leg, the guy realizes it just wants some affection. Feeling a bit greedy, he snatches the rodent up, hoping it might drop some rare loot, giving the poor thing a near heart attack. With the tiny creature wriggling around trying to escape, our MC just watches it in silence. Changing his mind, he chuckles and lets the little guy go, figuring the rodent is just too funny to hurt. Relieved to make it out alive, the mouse bolts, sprinting away like a maniac. Watching the runaway dart into the ruins, the kid calls out, wanting to know where it's heading. Standing there, the guy watches the little creature make a bunch of squeaks and gestures, not getting a single word of it. Thinking it over, he gets the feeling the rodent is actually telling him to follow along. Deciding to take a gamble, the MC starts chasing after the hamster as it leads the way. Already out of breath, the poor guy complains about the pace and wonders where they're even going to end up. Suddenly, the furball stops dead in its tracks and points forward, making the kid let out a gasp of surprise. Staring down a massive waterfall, his eyes light up with pure joy at finally finding some water. Wasting zero time, he dunks his bottle right into the fresh stream, filling it all the way to the top. Gulping it down eagerly, the guy can feel his HP restoring all while his tiny guide watches him. Flashing a huge grin, he celebrates, swearing that nothing beats the taste of that fresh water right now. Taking a breather, the MC asks if the little guy lives out here, since the whole area seems pretty useless. Prying for info about the goddess, he just watches the rodent shrug and go back to licking its tiny paws. Completely ignoring him, the furball keeps up its little bath, not caring about the chat at all. Deflating instantly, the poor guy realizes that trying to shoot the breeze with a wild animal is just a massive waste of time. Right then the hamster squeaks and starts gesturing again, waving for the guy to follow along. Rolling with it, he decides to see where this little creature is taking him and picks up the pace. Arriving at this massive tree, he immediately notices its leaves shining like solid gold. But even while admiring that golden glow, the kid quickly realizes the whole tree is actually dead. Resting his hand against the trunk, he gets this dark feeling that this wasteland is suffering the exact same decay as Earth. Shattering the silence, a loud snap startles the guy, sending him looking around for the source of the noise. Glancing down at the dirt, he spots a wild ginseng root, finding it super weird for a plant to be growing in the middle of nowhere. Shu, the little mouse, screaming in sheer panic, cowering as it sees the guy accidentally step right on the root. Picking up the little plant, he watches the furball absolutely lose its mind and immediately starts apologizing. Just then, the system dings, popping up an alert that the true owner of this territory has just been discovered. Left hanging, he's got no clue what's going on and starts scanning the area for wherever this so-called boss is hiding. But the hamster goes full panic mode and bites onto his pants, making the kid yell out in confusion. Scooping the critter up, he tells it to chill, saying playtime is going to have to wait. Except the rodent just keeps thrashing around in his hand, squeaking like crazy, trying to get him to realize what's happening. Out of nowhere, the little guy starts glowing intensely, blasting this bright golden energy in every direction. Squeezing its tiny eyes shut and straining as hard as it can, the aura around it grows even more intense. Jaw practically hitting the floor, the guy just watches this wild light show, unable to process what's going down. The fear kicks in as he finally puts the pieces together, stuttering as he realizes who the true boss of this place might be. When it finally clicks, he asks out loud if this dried up, twisted little root is actually the owner. Waving his hands in denial, he reminds himself that the goddess was supposed to stand for abundance, not some dead weed. But then the ginseng pulses with a green light, and he starts yelling that it has to be a lie, saying it's just a regular plant. Flashing back to the gorgeous goddess artwork, he screams in outrage, right until the hamster whips out a tiny magnifying glass. Reading the fine print that says the image is strictly for illustrative purposes, the shock hits him like a truck, shooting him this super smug look. The rodent confirms his worst nightmare right through the lens. Dropping to his knees, he screams out a massive no, realizing this empty wasteland was actually a huge red flag all along. Thinking about it, that other god's drop rate was so high simply because he'd swallowed up all the competition's turf, beating himself up over it. He realizes how crazy it was to think pulling that card was actually a lucky break. Connecting the dots, he figures out the goddess got nerfed into a tiny twig because she lost all her territory. And the system backs it up, showing the poor thing's influence in this world is basically sitting at zero. Freaking out, he demands to know why his deity won't wake up, while the furball just nervously bites its little nails. Then sheer panic sets in, terrified that he might have actually offed his own goddess with that accidental stomp. Since she's dried out beyond belief, he decides to splash some water on her, hoping it might save her life. Carefully pouring out the liquid, he prays to whatever is listening for this dried up root to show some sign of life. Right on cue, the root starts glowing, and our MC gets the feeling his genius plan is actually working. Getting totally hyped, he dumps the rest of the water out, while the tiny mouse frantically tries to grab his arm to stop him. Inside the goddess's mind, the water pours down like golden rain, soothing centuries of brutal drought. But that quickly turns into a massive flood, and she starts begging the guy to turn off the tap. Screaming in terror, she warns him that she is going to drown before she even gets the chance to resurrect. Eyes bulging out of its head, the ginseng pops up completely soaked and in a state of pure panic. Jeering at the miracle, he shouts that she's finally awake, and the little mouse joins in on the celebration too. Then, the tiny plant takes a deep bow, welcoming the boy as her brand new apostle of abundance. Feeling his heart melt just a bit, he finally accepts that that this scrawny little twig is actually his master. But the hype dies out fast when he notices the poor thing can barely even stand, shaking like crazy. Stressed out, he grabs his head, having zero clue how he's supposed to help his goddess recover from this slump, until the system throws him a bone, popping up to say he can actually buff her by using his own skills. Curious, he activates the Blessing of Abundance, assuming it's some kind of farming buff to help crops grow, but the real shock hits when he reads the full name of the skill, Decapitation, making our MC freeze up instantly. Unable to believe his eyes, he wonders if it actually means chopping people's heads off. Picturing a guillotine, he questions if this supposed abundance comes from just slicing heads off left and right. Shaking his head, he rejects the gory idea and straight up asks her if that's really what the power does. And with the most innocent look ever, the ginseng just stares up at him and tilts its head, like, huh? Stuttering, the guy pushes the issue. Is she seriously telling him to go around executing everyone? In response, the goddess crosses her tiny arms and nods, confirming the brutal order without skipping a beat. Brain short-circuiting, he wonders if slaughtering wild animals counts toward the harvest too. Turning his head, he spots the little hamster happily bouncing around and instantly realizes what needs to be done. And the furball just keeps wiggling its little butt, happy as can be, completely clueless about the danger it's in. Glancing down at his sickle, he wonders if this cute little guy's fate is already sealed. Completely oblivious to the sudden dark vibe, the hamster lets out a confused little squeak. Getting a grip on his weapon, the guy's eyes turn dead cold as he silently apologizes for what he's about to do. Hoisting his sickle, he tells the creature he's a dispatcher without a choice, sending the little guy into full-blown panic mode. Thrashing around in pure desperation, the tiny mouse lets out this high-pitched squeal, trying its hardest to dodge the Grim Reaper. Realizing things are about to get real ugly, the ginseng just dips, quietly tiptoeing out of the danger zone. Facing the other way, our MC grumbles about hating this whole execution gig, but figures it's gotta be done for the goddess's sake. Squeezing its eyes shut, the hamster lets out one last squeak, absolutely convinced its time is up. Catching on to both of them bolting, the kid glances over his shoulder, suddenly feeling this super heavy vibe dropping over the area. A second later, this gooey, pitch-black hand bursts right out of the dirt like straight out of a horror movie. Jumping back in shock, he struggles to process what kind of twisted monstrosity just spawned in front of him. While he's staring, the thing forms into this massive slime monster rocking glowing red eyes. Shaking like a leaf, the little furball can barely even squeeze out a terrified squeak. But hitting a sudden spike of courage, the tiny beast actually dives right in front of its master to shield her. Then it finally clicks. The mouse wasn't the target at all, meaning our boy had read the whole situation completely wrong. Shifting his gaze, he locks onto the actual threat, his expression turning dead serious. Staring the beast down, the kid decides to end this quick, just praying his arms are strong enough to carry him through. Gripping the handle of his sickle tight, he shifts into a fighting stance. Fully committed to getting the job done, he charges the creature head-on without hesitating. Locking in on his target, he realizes his path to the enemy is wide open. Aiming dead center at the monster, he maps out the exact spot where his blade needs to land. Out of nowhere, the system dings, letting him know the decapitation skill is primed and ready to go. A massive wave of blue energy erupts around our MC, basically setting the air itself on fire. Letting out a fierce battle cry, he spins his whole body, winding up for the killing blow. Sweeping low to the ground, he delivers one clean, brutal slash right across the thing's gut. Jaw dropped to the floor, both the hamster and the ginseng are just left completely speechless. Instantly splitting right down the middle, the monster melts away into the air, turning into nothing but dust. Standing back up, our hero walks over to the goddess, just checking to make sure she made it through the chaos in one piece. Taking a moment to think it over, he's actually pretty impressed by the furball stepping up to guard its boss like that. Bowing his head, the kid apologizes for almost ending its life, leaving the little guy completely confused. He just keeps begging for forgiveness from the tiny rodent, who's still trying to process the near-death experience. Playing hard to get, the hamster sassily turns its face away for a second before finally accepting the apology. But it quickly throws up a tiny thumbs up, prompting our MC to officially name his new sidekick Hamdol. Flashing a huge grin, he asks if the little guy is feeling his brand new name. Eyes sparkling, Hamdol practically tears up from pure joy at finally having an actual name. While the dynamic duo celebrates, the system pops up with yet another notification. Skimming the prompt, he sees the skill automatically claims the monster's head as a sacrifice. Finding it kind of weird, he notices the beast was actually called an undead, a pretty hardcore name for such a trash tier mob. Then another alert chimes in, confirming the offering was successfully transferred right to his goddess's account. Glancing back, he checks on his master to see if the offering actually did anything. Catching that glowing aura around the ginseng, he realizes she's already looking way healthier than before. Hyped up, he figures out that if he keeps farming like this, she'll return to her former glory in no time. Shouting that he's going out to farm some more loot, he takes off sprinting, with Hamdall right on his heels. Dashing through the dead forest, our hero hits the gas, hunting down any mob foolish enough to cross his path. But he hits the brakes hard when he stumbles into a zone completely swarming with those slime creatures. The system dings again, leaving the kid staring at the massive horde in total confusion. Checking the new window, he reads something about a bunch of unassigned system points. With the furball perched on his shoulder, he wonders how he managed to score so many points right off the bat. Knowing a good deal when he sees one, the MC decides to tackle the very first quest on his list. Sizing up the group of slimes, he declares that Phase 1 is simply taking out the trash. Feeling pretty confident with his new buff, he figures spamming this skill is going to be an absolute breeze. Taking advantage of how incredibly slow these blobs are, he charges right into the thick of it. Framing the shot perfectly, the system prompts that it's time for his decapitation skill to take the stage again. Weeding between the monsters like a dancer, the kid just starts handing out rapid-fire slashes with his glowing purple sickle, and the system basically just confirms what he already knew. These slime mobs are way too sluggish to fight back. Riding high on the adrenaline, he starts calculating if he can casually rack up at least 100 kills right here. So far, the counter only shows 4 takedowns, leaving the actual kill limit a complete mystery. Fast forward a bit, and here comes our hero strolling up the forest trail, clocking out after a solid grind session. Perched on his shoulder, Hamdall is having the time of his life, practically vibrating with this excited golden aura. Bursting into laughter, the guy jokes that with all that swagger, you'd think the little dude was actually the one doing the fighting. Acting all cute, the mouse rubs against his cheek, making the kid dodge away laughing and begging for a break. Looking down at his 101 total kills, he still finds it so weird that such a weak mob got the hardcore title of undead. Shrugging it off to figure out later, the guy heads back to the spot where he left his boss. Making it back, he calls out her name, while Hamdall chimes in with a tiny squeak from his shoulder. And the results are crazy. The goddess looks way healthier, sporting fresh green leaves and a totally commanding aura. Genuinely impressed, he realizes the farming strat worked perfectly, and she'll be back to her majestic self in no time. Right then, the tiny deity points up at the massive tree, leaving him trying to guess what the next quest is. Standing in front of the golden bark, the trio just stares up, sizing up the huge challenge ahead of them. Looking down at the goddess, our MC asks if she wants him to lift her up so she can reach the trunk. Hoisting the tiny boss into the air, he gently presses her little hands right against the dead wood. The second she makes contact, this soft, gentle light instantly starts glowing from the bark. Caught off guard, he actually hears her tiny voice telling him to put his own hand on the tree too. Slapping his palm onto the trunk right next to hers, the guy braces himself for whatever comes next. Immediately, the system drops an alert that the blessing of abundance is now fully unlocked. But there's a serious catch. Pulling off this miracle is going to cost him every single hard-earned point he just farmed. Dialed all the way in, he commands the skill to activate with a voice full of absolute authority. Right beside him, the little mouse gets completely swallowed up by this vibrant green glow, and the goddess slips into the exact same trance, glowing so bright it practically blinds him. Holding his boss in one hand and touching the tree with the other, he channels all of that raw energy straight through his body. Thinking it over, he's totally convinced those points couldn't have gone to a better cause anyway. Yelling to dump it all, he unloads a massive burst of life energy directly into the heart of the tree. A streak of light shoots up the trunk like lightning, causing fresh leaves to sprout at a ridiculous speed. What was just dead firewood a second ago instantly turns into this massive, dense canopy just pulsing with life. One final burst of light explodes from the very top, lighting up the entire barren wasteland around them. Staring up at the branches now loaded with giant red apples, our MC just lets out an exhausted sigh. Holding both the goddess and the hamster, he's left stuttering over how incredibly well the skill actually worked. Cheering out loud, he realizes that the glowing sapling has transformed into a seriously top-tier apple tree. Reaching up, the guy plucks one of those massive fruits hanging heavy from the branch. Struggling just to hold the thing up, he quickly realizes that Earth's apples are absolute garbage compared to this beast. But as his stomach starts growling, he knows he's got to respect the pecking order first. first. Dropping to one knee, the kid humbly offers up the very first fruit to his goddess. Practically in tears, the tiny deity hugs the massive apple like it's the greatest treasure in the world. Hoping this helps her get her true form back, he honestly has to admit she's pretty freaking adorable like this. Except the fruit suddenly starts shriveling up in her hands, leaving the poor guy totally confused. Within seconds, the apple just melts into pure energy and gets completely absorbed by the little deity. Shocked, he yelps out loud, completely blown away by how effortlessly she just devoured the whole thing. Taking the hit not to test his master's appetite, he quickly shakes a bunch more apples loose from the branches. Arms fully loaded with fruit, he calls Hamdel over for a snack, and the little furball comes shooting over like a rocket. Knowing he definitely shouldn't let his guard down around the goddess of decapitation, his hunger eventually wins out. After the first bite, the kid just loses it, absolutely devouring the incredibly sweet fruit right alongside his furry buddy. Face totally covered in juice, he confidently declares that this is hands down the best thing he's ever tasted. Meanwhile, the tiny goddess is just watching her apostle eat, peeking out from behind the tree trunk. Blushing a deep red, she struggles to figure out what this weird, warm new feeling in her chest actually is. Deep in thought, the goddess remembers how the kid cleared the entire map of mobs in a single day. And he didn't even stop there, making a giant tree bear fruit in the blink of an eye. Completely stunned, she gets the feeling she just uncovered something terrifying about her brand new servant. Oblivious to all this, Chansu keeps partying it up, chowing down on apples with his face completely covered in juice. According to the lore, abundance used to run the show, guaranteeing the absolute best harvests. But when injustice made its move, her faction had to scramble just to avoid getting wiped out. So, to keep from starving, they ditched the farms and tried their luck at monster hunting. Except a bunch of farmers obviously weren't built for war, so they kept getting utterly destroyed. Desperate, they took their original harvest skill and tweaked it into decapitation. Even with that little workaround, the fall of abundance was basically written in the stars. Coming clean, the goddess explains that the move is actually just meant to harvest heads that have already been chopped off. Sighing, she admits that mixing a warrior and a farmer just doesn't work out too well. But then she drops a secret. In the hands of someone truly OP, the skill actually becomes lethal. Processing the thought, our MC stares hard at his sickle, realizing the tables have completely turned. Catching that intense look, the tiny deity feels a chill run down her spine and cowers in the corner. Walking over with a grin, he casually asks for more apples, leaving her totally puzzled. Hopping onto his shoulder, the goddess decides that no matter what, this kid is officially her property now. Feeling the sudden weight on his back, he turns his head and calls out to her, clearly confused. Clinging tight to his leg, she vows she's never handing him over to anyone else. Feeling a bit sketchy about it, the guy immediately asks if she's planning on absorbing him too. Right then, the scene shifts, revealing this massive crumbling building out on the horizon. Carrying a basket packed with apples, the kid picks up the pace heading toward the ruins. Holding the goddess super carefully, he notices the poor thing has completely passed out from exhaustion. With crazy gentleness, he lays the tiny deity down on this old stone altar. Smiling, he praises Hamdel for putting in the work, and the furball lets out a happy little squeak. Then his stomach growls so loud it practically gives both of them a heart attack. Glancing up at the sky, he jokes around, asking if that was actually thunder. Rubbing his belly, he realizes an all-apple diet isn't going to cut it for much longer. Right on cue, the system flashes in front of his face with a brand new prompt to decode. Reading something about a delivery event, he struggles to figure out what kind of gimmick this is. Realizing it's an item summoning mechanic, he figures this kind of service is pretty standard. But our huge question hits him. How are they supposed to deliver anything when he's stranded in the middle of nowhere? Looking over at Hamdel, he asks if the little guy is tired and suggests calling it a night. Being super gentle, he uses this massive leaf to tuck the goddess in like a blanket. Cut to this fancy building that just commands respect, the Temple of Circulation. Inside, hurried footsteps echo down the halls of this massive corporate office. Striding with purpose, a woman walks by rocking that pure girl boss energy. Over in the corner, her boss is glued to a notebook, not even blinking. Without warning, she just pops up right in front of the poor guy, nearly making him fall out of his chair. Stuttering, he asks what the deal is while she just goes off on him without holding back. Having zero patience, she complains about being swamped with work, officially introduced as Hai Sujin. Ranting about this free shipping promo, she calls it ridiculous to trade cheap apples for high-tier items. Slamming her hands on the desk, she demands to know if she's wrong, and her boss just shakes his head, pale with fear. Letting out a heavy sigh, the suit admits the situation is the exact opposite of that. Praising her hustle, he warns her that pulling so much overtime is going to wreck her health. Leaning back, he tells her to take it easy on this trip, or else she's going to collapse from from pure exhaustion. Furious, Sujin yells back that she knows she only got picked because they're short-staffed. Chuckling awkwardly, the senior asks if his cover was really blown that easily. Shoving her out the door, he jokes that she might just stumble into some secret hidden realm. Grumbling about the whole idea, she tells him to watch his back and dips out of there fast. Swiping through her screen, Sujin breaks down every single detail of the mission she's holding. Complaining about the grind, she's shocked by the sheer number of orders flooding in non-stop. Eyes locked in, she decides she's not leaving until she's geared up for absolutely anything. Meanwhile, the weather shifts and the sun beats down hard, lighting up the entire forest in an instant. Playing hide and seek among the apples, our MC whispers for someone to keep their head down, but the hamster starts squeaking behind a leaf, prompting him to shush the little guy. Spotting a half-eaten fruit on the ground, the kid warns that one single sound and they're busted. Flashing a cheeky smirk, he asks about the missing snack, leaving the furball completely frozen. Without a second thought, he pounces and snatches the rodent up, pulling a tiny squeal out of it. Hoisting the little beast into the air, he celebrates his win, calling his buddy a sneaky little rascal. But the celebration turns into a lecture, demanding to know why the furball is snacking on their profits. Holding the little guy in his palm, he keeps scolding him, making the mouse practically die of embarrassment. Then he explains to the goddess that these apples are their only currency and they can't afford any losses. Sighing, the guy admits they can't mess things up when the guest is coming all this way. Thinking back to that event, he realizes the whole world is basically one massive blocky game board. Seems normal enough, but the borders are packed with these light barriers blocking anyone from crossing over. And to hop between zones, you need a rare ticket that the system only drops once a day. Thinking it over, his turf is an absolute wasteland, and the closest village is a full week's travel away. Because of that, their only real option was farming and surviving off their own apple stash. With his sidekick perched on his shoulder, he smiles, thinking it's wild the delivery is showing up in just 2 days. Flopping down onto the grass, he admits he hasn't got a clue how the shipping speed is that crazy fast. Chatting with the tiny deity, he mentions that a soft mattress right now would be straight up paradise. Then reality hits him as he notices his boss definitely needs a proper bed too. Jumping up out of nowhere, a brilliant idea sparks in the kid's mind instantly. Whipping out his sickle, he decides he needs to spoil the goddess before his luck runs out. Staring down a pack of undead slimes, he jokes around, asking if monsters do deliveries too. Flashing a little smirk, he points out that this plague of mobs hasn't stopped spawning since yesterday. He actually corrects himself. These guys don't stay down, they just keep coming back for another beating. Gripping his weapon tight, the blade flares up with a purple glow that practically blinds everyone nearby. With a single swing, he launches a flawless slash that connects perfectly with the entire mob. Leaping right into the middle of the pack, the kid sends slime flying everywhere with his strike. Locked onto the fight, the hamster watches from his shoulder with its tiny eyes wide open. But this mob is stubborn, and one of the creatures starts piecing itself back together right out of the muh. Showing zero mercy, the MC instantly slices the beast up before it even manages to stand straight. Noticing the enemies getting faster, he starts wondering if these things are actually leveling up too. Even so, he plants his feet and gets ready to keep sweeping the area clean. Spinning through the air, the farmer unloads a flurry of slashes, turning everything around him into minced meat. In a flash, the monsters just turn to dust, vanishing into the wind without a single trace. Sticking a stylish landing, he wipes the sweat from his forehead, super relieved the job is done. Way up high, Sujin arrives flying and peers down, completely failing to understand the scene below her. Shocked, the girl realizes that despite the absolute carnage, this is literally just a beginner zone. Seeing the guy just smiling while the hamster shakes in fear, she freezes up at how bizarre the whole thing looks. The truth is, these undead mobs are actually perfect for anyone looking to power level fast. The only problem is they respawn way stronger the next day just to hunt down their target, making things worse. Their curse basically ruins anyone it touches, which is why most players run for their lives. Twirling his sickle like a seasoned pro, our hero leaves Sujin totally hypnotized up in the sky. Watching that ridiculous display, she can only wonder where the hell this absolute madman came from. Starting to panic, she notices the kid doesn't show a drop of fear and clearly couldn't care less about the curse. Covering her mouth with both hands, she goes into shock, finding the whole thing just way too surreal. Unable to believe her own eyes, the woman swears she just stumbled across a top-tier combat master hiding out in the boonies. But then it hits her. What is a top-tier combat master doing, selling apples out in the middle of nowhere? Playing it safe, Sujin decides to keep up her professional act and avoid stirring the pot. Meanwhile, our hero gets completely blindsided by his system window popping right up in his face. Flashing a massive grin, he watches his point balance shoot up with a sweet 10% bonus. Doing the quick math of 1,000 points a pop, he figures shipping out another 100 apples will be an absolute breeze. Looking out over the ruins, the kid realizes this whole area is a complete gold mine for farming. Taking a step forward, he watches the merchant girl slowly float down from the sky. Giving this super formal bow, she drops Chansu's full name, showing some serious respect. Smiling bright, she introduces herself as a rep for the circulation company and lets him know his delivery is here. A bit thrown off, he asks how she tracked him down so fast, and she casually mentions their tracking system is flawless. Except the second she gets a little closer, that whole strictly business vibe shatters entirely. Instantly hypnotized by Hamdul, she just melts over how adorable the little guy is while he lets out this cute squeak. Turning red as an apple, she practically tries to snatch the furball right up, leaving our MC asking if she's alright. Spinning around to hide her face, she silently freaks out over the cuteness, making the guy think she might actually be crazy. Leaning against a basket, he just watches this merchant try to pull herself back together. Taking a deep breath, she finally mentions that the scent coming off those apples is out of this world. Puffing his chest out, the guy brags about how good the harvest was, with his tiny sidekick nodding along on his shoulder. Strolling across the grass, the pair walks right up to the branches heavily loaded with massive red fruits. Stopping dead in her tracks, the girl just stares at the giant apple tree, completely blown away by its sheer size. Handing her one of the apples, the farmer offers a free sample and she stutters, asking if he's actually serious. Gripping the fruit, she almost tips over backward from the weight and the unreal size of the thing. Flipping on her merchant brain, she knows overgrown fruits usually lose their flavor, so she stays a bit skeptical. Taking just a tiny bite, the juice immediately runs down her chin, tasting exactly like pure honey. Eyes going wide, the shock hits her hard, swearing she's never tasted anything this amazing in her entire life. Taking a huge bite, she realizes the tartness is dialed in perfectly, making it an absolute flavor explosion. Crunching the numbers in her head, she figures it could easily fetch anywhere from 50 to 100,000 gold coins. Turning to him, she double-checks if his asking price was really just 2,000, and he nods like a total rookie. Her face dropping instantly, the girl gives it to him straight, telling him that price tag is a complete joke. Deflating right away, the poor guy assumes he asked for way too much and just blew the deal. About to drop his price, Sujin cuts him off, mysteriously holding up 2 fingers, guessing 200. The kid is super confused, until the merchant corrects him with a whopping 20,000. Putting her foot down, she warns him to never accept a single coin less than 20 grand for these beauties. Hearing that massive figure, the guy completely loses his mind, and the hamster starts freaking out right along with him. Acting a bit smug, she explains that in a high-end storefront, these could easily pull 30 grand. The kid is just zoning out over the numbers, but she refuses to rip off this specific client. Thinking back to that crazy display of power, she figures it's way safer to keep this madman as a solid ally. Taking a deep breath, RMC quickly corrects her, saying these aren't just snacks, they're his goddess's actual life force. Holding the apple up like a shiny trophy, she declares this is the greatest product she's ever sourced. In her mind, these fruits easily crush any rare collector's item out there. Whipping out a digital scroll, she immediately locks those 20 grand into the system. With a glowing contract floating between them, the girl offers to make their business partnership official. Handing over the pen, she just waits for his signature to lock down this massive deal. But he doesn't just blindly sign, reading through every single line like a guy who refuses to get scammed. Flashing a smirk, he nods at the fine print, finding the setup pretty much perfect. Right before signing, he pulls the pen back and slides in a brand new clause, completely shifting the vibe. Spotting the edit, the girl freezes up, asking if his brain just short-circuited on the math. Cool as a cucumber, he explains that he actually just bumped up her cut of the profits by a lot. Explaining the tip, he tells her he respects the honesty, since she easily could have ripped him off. Left completely speechless, Sujin is just blown away by how genuinely nice this weirdo is. Flashing a warm smile, she seals the deal, knowing she just hit the absolute jackpot. Shaking his hand, she gives him a heartfelt thanks for officially partnering up with her guild. Right after, Sujin pulls out a massive crate, handing over everything the kid ordered for the trade. Laying out the goods, she runs through the seeds, the food supplies, and all the cooking gear, and super carefully, she hands over a familiar egg as a little bonus gift from the company. Glancing over at Hamdul, she assumes he already has a cute pet, which just leaves our MC confused. Feeling a bit awkward, the merchant asks if the furball isn't actually a familiar, apologizing for the mix-up. Hooked by the topic, the guy asks her to break down exactly how this egg thing works. Giving him the rundown, she explains that pumping points into it buffs the creature, but you can't can't crack the shell yourself. The big trick is to stop when it starts shaking hard. Hearing that, the kid figures he'll just have to wing it. Changing the subject, she asks about his crop yield, and he ballparks at around 50 apples a day. Ironing out the last details, they wrap up the deal by buying a digital warehouse to stash his harvest. With his tiny boss resting in style, the guy praises her for staying out of sight while they talked. Glad he kept his deity hidden just to be safe. He asks if she caught a good vibe from the merchant, sitting on top of the crates. He takes in all the new loot, quietly thanking his goddess for the abundance. Looking over, he just sees the little mandrake tilting her head, looking completely clueless. Suddenly, the tiny boss runs over and hugs the familiar egg, giving it all the love in the world. Staring at that egg, he realizes he's going to have to grind incredibly hard to farm enough points. Fired up, he decides it's time to pull more mobs into his territory, since things are way too quiet around here. Scrolling through a menu that lists the undead slime as the top mob, he cringes pretty hard. But flashing this scheming little smirk, he feels like things are turning out way better than expected. Looking out at the horizon, he knows for a fact that this journey is only just starting. Flashing forward to this vision, the goddess looks absolutely radiant, using a watering can to breathe life back into the dirt. Even with the thought of terrifying mobs heading his way, the guy doesn't flinch, holding his ground like a pro. Showing zero fear, he just smiles, watching his boss and his furry sidekick messing around with the can of peas. Hyped up for the grind, he admits he's dying to see what kind of wild stuff the future holds. Cutting back to Sujin and her boss, the two are devouring the apples, debating if that kid is actually an apostle. Chewing happily, the suit bets everything on the guy belonging to the alchemy faction, but the merchant disagrees, swearing his combat style practically screams war faction like some badass lone wolf. Her boss counters that pretty much every top apostle is from there, but highly doubts a fruit farmer is out looking for brawls. Shivering as she remembers that scythe in action, she swears on her life that the kid is a hidden sword master. Hearing that, the senior agrees, figuring it's better to keep it hush-hush instead of blowing a fortune on an escort team. Mind made up, the guy plans to drop the fruit in their luxury storefront, knowing they'll sell out instantly. Out of nowhere, Sujin slaps his wrist, stopping the guy from sneaking the very last apple slice. Annoyed, the boss asks what her deal is, telling her to let go of his arm right now. Furious, she yells that the freeloader already tanked their profits by eating almost the whole stash himself. Practically throwing hands in the office, the two bicker over who actually deserves the sweet prize more. The dust settles and the scene transitions to this incredible night sky packed with stars. Back at his base, the kid sets up the egg, praying for a heavy hitter familiar to help with the daily grind. Smiling, he starts pumping energy into it while the tiny goddess and his furry sidekick watch closely. With a blinding flash, the egg suddenly cracks, spooking the farmer and making Hamdall squeal in panic. Super hyped, our hero begs for the beast to finally hatch as the glowing light takes over the room. When the energy explodes, the system drops massive text on the screen, announcing an SS's rank familiar. Kicking at the shell, the creature makes the guy scream out loud, pumped for this legendary spawn. Then, this tiny little beak shatters the rest of the shell with a sharp crack. Struggling super hard, the tiny creature wiggles out, trying to break entirely free from the mess. And to everyone's absolute shock, out pops a fluffy little yellow chick, letting out the softest chirp. Paralyzed, the poor guy starts crying inside over the 120,000 points he just threw down the drain. Watching the baby bird run around, he's incredibly frustrated, thinking he literally just pulled a basic farm chicken. Scowling, our MC is so pissed he's already planning on tossing this newborn straight into the frying pan. Licking his lips, he figures a piece of fried chicken, seasoned with that many expensive points, has to taste incredible. Keeping it simple, he introduces himself as Chan Su and names the little chick Ari. Ari immediately lets out a chirp watching the other egg shake, while the hamster warns them another one's coming. Pumped up, the kid celebrates, swearing he's finally getting a right-hand man for the daily grind. And here we go. The second egg shatters in a blinding flash of light that forces everyone to look away. But when the dust settles, a cute little pig pops out, letting off this adorable oink. Deflating on the spot, he names the little guy Doji, super bummed out, thinking he just got scammed. Taking a deep bow, the duo greets the goddess of abundance right in her rude form. Looking down, she mentions it's been ages since they last met, and apologizes for vanishing like that. Freaking out, the two beg her not to blame herself, swearing they'll fight to protect her no matter what, thanking them for the love. The tiny boss suddenly changes her tone, warning them about a much bigger problem. Dead serious. She tells them to keep an eye on the kid, otherwise he'll wipe them both out in a heartbeat. Then she drops the bomb. He might actually toss the two of them into a frying pan, considering how hungry he looks staring at them. Giving it to them straight, she warns the duo to pull their weight before before his patience completely runs out. Shaking with fear, the pig starts panicking while Ari decides to just hang back and observe the situation first. Fast forward to the next morning. The sun comes up, painting the entire forest in this bright golden glow. Yawning loud, the farmer steps out of his shelter, stretching with his scythe already in hand. Smiling to himself, he points out that his daily routine always kicks off with these uninvited guests now. Wishing the mob a good morning, he dives straight into the horde, slicing up everything in his path. Watching from a distance, the new pets are completely confused, with Doji freezing up at the sharp sound of slicing steel. Deep in shock, the furry duo just freezes watching this brutal morning cleanup routine. Seeing their owner slaughter enemies like it's nothing, Ari freaks out while the pig starts fearing for its own life. Locked onto his targets, the madman keeps up the brutal assault without giving them a single second to breathe. Ripping through the wind with his scythe, every single slash is completely fatal and lands with zero mistakes. Just like that, a monster collapses into the dirt, while the rookie duo watches without even blinking. Turning to dust, the creature just vanishes right in front of the chick, who turns pale from pure terror. Shaking uncontrollably, Ari remembers their owner practically drooling over them earlier, and Doji asks if they're actually in danger. Confirming their worst fears, the bird warns the pig that this guy definitely wants them for lunch. Right at the middle of their freakout, the system pops up announcing his kill count just hit 202. Wiping the sweat off his face, he flashes a proud smile, completely satisfied with clearing out the whole area. Out of nowhere, a rustling sound in the bushes catches his attention, making the kid snap his head around. Staring down the two pets, he asks what time it is, and they immediately try to act incredibly polite. Nudging the pig to act cute, Ari tries to help out, and the guy just smiles, thinking they're pretty smart. But suddenly remembering something, our MC snaps his fingers, scaring the living daylights out of them. Underneath the trees, the sunlight creates this peaceful vibe that completely clashes with the duo's absolute panic. Holding out some sliced apples, the guy asks if they want to grab a quick bite. Practically drooling, the pig leans in for a bite, but the little chick tells him to keep his cool. Encouraging the rookie to dig in, the guy smiles, and the pig just goes to town, thinking the food tastes heavenly. Smiling, the owner wonders out loud if feeding them these apples will make their meat taste better, nearly giving Ari a heart attack. Desperate, the bird tells his buddy to stop eating, refusing to let him turn into apple-flavored bacon. Offering a slice to the chick, the bird just swats at it, knocking the food far away. Even with all that attitude, the smell completely hypnotizes the bird, making him realize these fruits are worth a fortune. Turning his head away to resist the temptation, he leaves our MC super confused by the hard pass. Shrugging it off, the kid tosses some plain grains in front of the bird, testing if he prefers the basics. Shaking with hunger, Ari holds his ground, swearing on his life he is never turning into roast chicken. Watching all this go down, the guy just thinks it's weird how picky this little bird is being. So, a quick 3-minute crash course begins. The plan is simple. The pig digs the holes, and Ari drops the seeds. Laying down the ground rules, he tells them to cover the holes, water the soil, and then drop that glowing blessing buff. Giving the hamster a quick thumbs up, he brags that their boss is straight up the best deity in the world. Holding up a black bean, he happily points out that the seed is perfect and ready to go. Except out of nowhere, he freezes up, feeling a cold chill down his spine like something is definitely off. Suddenly, wings sprout right out of Ari's back, and the bird tries to snatch the glowing seeds straight from his hand. Hauling over the first basket from the harvest, he announces this batch is an offering going straight to the goddess. Giggling with joy, the tiny boss gets ready to dive right into this massive bean feast, but she devours the whole pile in such a bizarre, terrifying way that our MC is left in absolute shock. Not wanting to waste any time, the kid decides to eat fast so he can start planting potatoes before the day ends. Seeing Doji lick his plate clean is pretty standard, but he gets a bit curious about what Ari is doing. Surprising literally everyone, the little bird starts inhaling the food like there's no tomorrow. A little while later, the tiny bird is sitting there with a belly so stuffed he looks ready to pop. Sprawled out on the ground, the little pig rolls around happily while the chick suffers hard from a major food coma. Whining non-stop, the poor bird is completely convinced he's destined for the frying pan now. Chuckling at the dramatic pets, the guy decides to speed up the farming so he can keep his whole crew well fed. Looking over at his orchard, he remembers today is the big day to cash in on those famous apples. Cutting over to this high-end luxury shop, everyone is super stressed, wondering if the fruits are actually selling. We get a look at Sujin's boss, buried under a mountain of paperwork trying to keep things running. Finally wrapping up the heavy lifting, he mutters that all that's left is to go check on the apple stock. Walking onto the sales floor, the suit runs right into this massive crowd swarming the Emperor's apple display. There's just one catch. The crowd is only staring, but nobody is actually reaching into their pockets to buy anything. Decked out in gold packaging, the legendary fruit is priced at a wild 200,000 gold coins a pop. Thinking it over, he realizes the overly fancy name and that insane price tag definitely scared off the regular customers. Racking his brain, he tries to figure out a way to prove how incredible the flavor is without handing out expensive free samples. Suddenly, the boss hears a loud commotion and turns around, getting ready to thank a potential buyer. Right then, the whole floor erupts into chaos as the crowd watches some guy buy out the entire stock in one go. Completely lost, the senior gets word from one of the staff that the apples are already sold out. Where a shiny pyramid of high-end fruit used to sit, there's just an empty spot on the shelf now. Frozen in pure disbelief, he can't wrap his head around how the entire inventory vanished in the blink of an eye. Explaining the whole crazy situation, an employee mentioned some big shot tasted one and immediately swiped his card for the whole batch. Panning over to this red-haired guy standing in the middle of the crowd, the VIP buyer's identity is finally revealed. Rohan. Nearly falling over backwards, the boss completely loses it, recognizing the living legend on the spot. Being the famous swordmaster himself, the warrior just holds up the fruit while the whole crowd stares in awe. Taking a massive bite, he gives it his stamp of approval, and news that the legend loved the snack spreads like wildfire. Reading the headlines claiming the fruit is the swordmaster's new official training snack, the boss practically loses his mind. Screaming into the phone, he yells that nobody becomes a top-tier combat master just from eating apples. But all that yelling does no good, as every phone in the office starts ringing off the hook. Answering the calls looking super awkward, he introduces himself as Ryu Wawan representing the guild. Catching him completely off guard, a client demands 100 crates right on the spot, almost giving the poor guy a heart attack. Fast forward a bit, and it's officially been a full week since our boy embraced the farming life. With the whole crew fully fed, he decides it's finally his turn to step up and play chef. Setting up his perfect little kitchen station, he gets a pan on the fire and pulls out a knife to prep the potatoes. Smiling like a goofball with the food in his hands, he swears the flavor easily rivals those legendary apples. Jumping into action, the kid peels everything with this crazy speed that would make any pro chef jealous. With the knife dancing in his hand, every single veggie gets sliced into perfectly even pieces. Tossing the whole batch into the sizzling pan, his technique leaves the little hamster looking seriously impressed. Right over the sound of the frying wheel, he suddenly hears this very familiar grunt coming from nearby. Spotting the little pig practically drooling, the guy firmly states that this dinner is exclusively for him. Letting out this heavy, sad sigh at the rejection, the poor pig just gives him a look of pure heartbreak. Feeling pretty bad for the guy, the farmer finally caves, tossing him a tiny piece just to satisfy his craving. Right then, a woman's voice calls out the kid's name, catching him completely off guard. Watching from a distance, Sujin is just melting over the triple threat of cuteness now that the eggs have hatched. Moving fast, the pets group up, forming a living shield to hide their tiny goddess from this total stranger. Looking a bit awkward, the farmer confirms it's him and immediately asks what brings her back out here. Smiling, she mentions she brought some piping hot tea and asks if he's ready for it. Giddy as hell, she reveals the apples sold for 200,000 coins and they completely sold out. The MC nearly falls over at that price tag, while she adds the market is in pure chaos, begging for more. Thinking out loud, he wonders if the world is really just packed with rich snobs. Doing some quick math, the kid figures out he's about to rake in 3 million coins a day. Eyes flashing with greed, he realizes he could actually become a billionaire soon. Already picturing himself swimming in cash, living that baller lifestyle with his pets draped in pure luxury. But reality hits hard, leaving him just standing there drooling like an idiot right in front of her. Getting serious for a second, he thinks all this money might actually help him track down some clues about his parents. As for the fees, the girl promises to fight to lower the cut, though she drops a bit of a buzzkill warning. All business now, she asks how long he really thinks this apple hype is gonna last. Giving it to him straight, she warns they can't keep pushing that 200-gram price point forever. Breaking down the game plan, she explains the market is massive enough that it'll take years to actually saturate. Eyes wide, the guy thinks she's being way too optimistic about these buyers. Calming him down, she points out the market over there is colossal, easily the size of China, no joke. Grabbing his arm, the merchant begs him to ramp up production ASAP. Dodging the topic, he casually suggests she taste the potatoes, claiming they're just as top tier. Blown away, the girl just trips out, unable to believe anything could match those apples. Apologizing for the wait, he lifts the lid off the pot, building up some serious suspense. Cheeks flushed with anticipation, she grips her silverware, completely ready for this feast. He dishes out the potatoes and the girl instantly thanks him while prepping her first bite. Blowing on it so she doesn't scorch her tongue, she finally takes a taste. Chewing the way her face lights up like she just discovered absolute heaven. Completely amazed, she praises that sweet potato flavor mixed with the perfect hit of salt. And the compliments just keep rolling, raving about the amazing smell and that melt-in-your-mouth texture. Grinning at her reaction, the kid drops the news that he still has pancakes and a ton of fries coming up. Sujin's jaw practically hits the floor seeing those fries smothered in a massive mountain of cheese. Going in for the kill, she snags the crispy fries with her chopsticks using some crazy speed. Wolfing down the food, she mumbles that this flavor easily rivals any fancy 5-star spot, calling it the true main course. The guy is just stoked he nailed the recipe. Rolling out the grand finale, he serves up the roasted sweet potatoes, which happens to be the pig's favorite. Right as she's about to take a bite, Doji and Ari come sprinting over, lured in by the smell. Desperate, the little pig lets out these tragic grunts, begging for a piece of that sweet goodness. Opening up the buffet, the owner notices Ari looking a bit scrawny and immediately accuses the pig of stealing food. Peeking at the chaos, the hamster keeps a close eye on the table so he doesn't miss out on anything. Snagging a piece, the furball rubs against the sweet potato, making the merchant practically melt from the cuteness. Seeing the menu do so well, the MC throws out the idea of selling these new treats too. Thanking him for the meal, the merchant dials back in asking if he can really manage planting all that. Explaining the bottleneck, he points out he can't blow all his hard-earned points just on farming. Dead serious, she practically begs him to focus entirely on apple production for now. Breaking down the market, she praises his cooking but reminds him how the apostles operate out there. The thing is, selling potatoes at a premium price is rough, and the profit wouldn't even come close to the fruit. Giving a deep bow, she asks the kid for a little sympathy considering how much the apples are blowing up. Thinking about the money, the guy figures he's being too stubborn and decides to let go of 100 units. Sealing the deal, he guarantees 100 apples a day, leaving the woman in pure shock. Stuttering in disbelief, she tries to process the massive jackpot she just landed. For our MC, you don't always have to play hardball, and this partnership definitely seems worth it. Meanwhile, the hamster climbs onto his shoulder, watching the whole good deed play out. Beaming, the merchant thanks him for the business and gives the little pet a massive squeeze. The next day, the scene shifts to this dried-out hill, marking the start of a brand new challenge. Scythe in hand, the kid hits the road with Ari and Doji trailing right behind him. Doji starts doubting if following this guy is even safe, but Ari quickly tells him to quit whining. The little chick argues someone needs to keep watch, since they definitely can't trust Hamdol to do it. Glancing back, Chan-Su sizes up the duo, well aware that pets who don't pull their weight are just dead weight. But any high hopes vanish instantly when the two start screaming, rolling down the hill with zero brakes. Face palming hard, he regrets ever getting his hopes up about these guys. Right as Q, a giant monster spawns directly in front of Doji, who freezes up in pure terror. The little pig goes into a full meltdown, sweating bullets and screaming his lungs out on the road. Catching the scene, the kid yells at him to run, but quickly realizes he's way too far away for a rescue. Without hesitating, he charges in with his glowing scythe, risking it all on one crazy strike. Locking onto the target from a distance, he lines up his swing with some serious intent. Except, noticing the blade isn't going to reach, he starts bracing himself for the worst-case scenario. Ari watches the whole thing crying, highly doubting their master can pull off a miracle from that far back. Then the scythe drops, turning the beast into smoke and saving the pets by a razor-thin margin. Even Chan-Su is spooked by the range on that attack, which just got a massive, ridiculous buff. Noticing the upgrade, he doesn't even take a breather, sprinting off to hunt more targets to test it out. Calculating the exact angle, he fires off another shot to make sure it wasn't just some lucky fluke. Just like that, he unleashes this violent arc of energy, wiping the entire area clean in a flash. And the system chimes in, confirming mass decimation, the bonus that permanently broke his weapon's range. Reading the prompt, he scrunches his nose at the super edgy name for his brand new skill. Still, gripping the tool tight, he admits this crazy new range is actually a huge lifesaver. Flashing that greedy little smirk, the MC realizes his profit margins are about to double. Meanwhile, the dynamic duo is still in shock, shaking like leaves after witnessing that massive slaughter. Soon enough, the two bolt, screaming for the goddess like there's no tomorrow. Seeing all that panic, the little mandrake asks what the tragedy of the hour is this time. Ari starts rambling non-stop, warning her the kid officially lost it and is sweeping mobs in a single strike, demanding some emergency comms magic. He gets told by the queen that it's not even in her catalog. Crying his eyes out, Ari swears he's so terrified at becoming dinner that he literally lost his appetite. Right then, Doji stares down the deity, wanting to know if she was the one who handed out that broken power, but the poor thing's jaw just drops, having zero clue what the heck they're even talking about. From a distance, Chansu lets out this evil villain laugh, sending a cold shiver straight down the goddess's spine. Trembling, the pets whisper to each other, pretty convinced their owner is actually some grim reaper. Cutting the chatter, she asks for just a quick second to wrap her head around the whole situation. Looking down at the cowards on the floor, she points out the puzzle pieces are finally coming together. The pig assumes it must be some divine gift, but gets quickly shoved aside by the stressed-out chick. Anxious as hell, the familiar demands to know what on earth is actually happening with this kid. Explaining it calmly, she mentions the technique evolved entirely on its own, morphing into a turbocharged version. Essentially, the move leveled up the hard way, purely off the MC's own relentless grind. Ari mutters at some veteran tier stuff, and she agrees the kid is just a straight-up prodigy. With a different kind of spark in her eye, she reveals there's actually one more massive detail to cover. Flashing a soft smile, she finishes by saying he's the kind of guy who holds on to a lot of gratitude. After all, villain vibes aside, his insane hustle is the only thing keeping everyone alive and safe out here, promising to unlock that chat magic soon. She takes a massive weight right off the little bird's shoulders. Out on the horizon, she spots the kid strolling back, waving over at them looking super happy. Rehearsing her lines, the tiny deity can hardly wait to actually sit down and chat with him. Trying to grant the pet some fancy beast title, she only ends up confusing the duo even more, but the system shuts that down instantly, throwing a warning that forcing skills directly violates the rules. So the final choice lands right in Chansu's lap, leaving two shiny options blinking on his screen. Crossing her fingers, the goddess begs him mentally, but the kid is only looking for a way to keep her safe. Hovering his finger over the system tab, the suspense hits hard as he gears up for the big decision. All hyped up, the goddess gets her thank you speech ready for when they finally chat. Right then, the system flashes a warning. Time's up on the decision. Banging the gavel, the screen confirms he'd just scored the promise of abundance. The whole world freezes. The mandrake goes stiff, realizing they're gonna stay stuck in awkward silence. Eyes popping out of her head, all she can manage is a massive, confused hun. Meanwhile, our guy is completely clueless about the mood, just focusing on the skill and bracing for another headache. Flashing back to the choice, the options for abundance or communication were glowing right in front of him. Breaking it down, the first one was pure mystery, while the second promised he could actually talk to the plants. That got his mind racing, picturing Ari being super dramatic, and Doji throwing a tantrum if they ran out of food. Even worse, he imagined the apple tree whining about back pain from carrying all that weight. Feeling a shiver run down his spine, he figures dealing with a complaining orchard would be a massive headache. Going with the classic ignorance is bliss logic, he chose to keep the plants on mute. Zero hesitation, he just smashed his finger right into the other option. Boom. The system gives the green light, locking in his final pick and closing the case. Out of nowhere, he notices the whole squad looking deflated, finding this sudden collective depression super weird. But hey, the show must go on. He decides to test drive the new toy and see if it was worth the hype. Skimming the vague description, he guesses it's some kind of contract with the boss. Yanking an apple straight out of his pocket, the kid sets the stage for the trial run. Holding the fruit high like a trophy, he declares this offering is for the deity. Bouncing over to the mandrake all hyped up, he tries to hand over the snack. Except the poor thing just turns her back, pouting and leaving him looking like a clown. Then, the system refunds his points. He jokes around thinking the goddess is on a hunger strike. Giving it a second thought, he catches on to the gimmick if the promise gets denied, he gets some divine cash back. To test the theory, he pinches Hamdol's cheek. The critter squeals and the points bounce right back. With the hamster huffing and puffing, our guy flashes an evil smirk, hunting for his next guinea pig. Announcing he's gonna stuff the pig's face, Ari hits panic mode, begging for mercy. Ignoring the drama, he feeds Doji, who happily swallows the whole thing in the blink of an eye. But the system stays dead silent, no points refunded. He starts thinking the skill is glitched. Getting pretty annoyed, he can't believe the beast just demolished 10 apples and the promise didn't even trigger. Giving up on the experiment, he realizes this little game was expensive, and he just wasted fruit for nothing. Right in the middle of this letdown, a very familiar voice frantically calls out his name. Sujin shows up completely out of breath from sprinting. The kid immediately warns her they've got bigger fish to fry. Panicking, she tells him to conquer the area and set up defenses, otherwise things are gonna get super ugly. Caught off guard by this whole attack warning, he finds out the line of enemies stretches around the block. Turns out that apple went viral. 5,000 people are already cramming the waitlist. The kid almost has a heart attack hearing that number. After all, the crowd isn't willing to wait and is demanding the fruit right now, meaning the hunter guilds are gonna swoop in for the kill. And out here in this lawless zone, he's a sitting duck. The merchant drops the harsh truth about the risks, and he shoots a nervous glance over at his so-called army. Looking at these tiny pets, he wonders how on earth he's supposed to fend off 5,000 apple junkies with them. Thinking it through, if he gets wiped out now, the goddess and this whole abundance thing instantly become ancient history. That's when Sujin lays out the game plan. He needs to take over the surroundings and throw up a security gate. The strategy is set: claim the neighborhood and cut down the merchant's delivery route. And once all that's locked down, the system would finally give him a clear path to move around safely. He still hasn't swallowed those 5,000 orders popping up out of thin air though. Forcing a tight smile, the girl admits the apple rumors have spun way out of control. People swear it cures amnesia and even whitens teeth. The MC loses his mind, calling it pure madness. Disappointed, the poor girl physically deflates, but he just yells that it's just a tasty fruit and nothing more. Turning his back, he marches off to start the turf war, but his partner calls out one last time. Pushing to know if the fruit really doesn't heal anything, he snaps back that it's just regular food. Hard cut to the next scene. We're staring at the cold, sterile front of a hospital. Down the hallway, some guy in a trench coat walks briskly, getting watched from the shadows. Gripping a camera tight, the spy is grinning ear to ear, knowing he just bagged the scoop of the year. Right then, the lens does a perfect zoom, locking straight onto one of the private rooms. Inside, the alchemist Unsu pushes up his glasses, greeting his visitor with pure sarcasm. Dropping a fancy box on the bed, the guest hears that today is finally discharge day. Ripping the package open, he spots 4 apples and immediately asks if this is that famous hoarded fruit. The guy tries to play it cool, but Yunsu already offers him a slice, seeing right through his curiosity. Without a second thought, the visitor shoves that apple slice straight down the hatch. The shock hits him instantly. He can't believe so much flavor and nutrition fit inside a single piece of fruit. Firing off questions like a machine gun, the suit makes his buddy wonder if the farmer is even human. Taking a bite himself, Onsu zones out, realizing this taste defies all logic and science. Freaking out, he yells when he sees his friend devouring the whole stash, but the guy just tells him to eat and shut up. Whipping out his phone, he decides to flex his VIP status to secure his own personal supply. But reality hits like a truck. The rep on the line warns him about the mile-long waitlist. Furious, the alchemist screams he'll pay double or triple, losing his damn mind over an apple. Poking fun at him, his buddy flashes a smug grin and gets cursed out immediately. Next thing you know, a pillow flies right at his face, sparking a hilarious brawl over the last bite. Fast forward to the next day. The news of a miracle cure blows up in the papers, and Chansu nearly has a stroke reading it. Slamming his fist on the desk, the kid is furious at the massive lies spreading about his product. Yelling at the walls, he insists it's just really good food, not some medical miracle. Taking a deep breath, he summons the deity, squaring his shoulders like a guy marching straight into war. Announcing he's about to conquer the neighboring blocks, he leaves the mandrake completely stunned. Leaving the pets on guard duty, he makes the goddess freak out, considering his only real skill is farming. But before she can throw a fit, the guy hits the gas and dashes out of there like a lightning bolt. Pure reflex. She tugs on his clothes, begging him to stay and catching him completely by surprise. Glancing sideways at the boss, a brilliant idea just clicks in the kid's head. Far away, Hamdel stares down some glowing golden thing, sensing his time has finally come. And the system chimes in with its stats: pure carbs and top-tier plant protein. Chansu admits the green diet is cool and all, but to face this mess, he needs actual meat. Feeling a bit awkward, he confesses he felt bad eating meat right in front of the pig and the chick. Playing dumb, he uses the goddess as an excuse to shoo the pets away without traumatizing them. Slipping into a small room, the kid pops open the freezer like he's cracking a bank vault. Instantly, his eyes light up, admiring the frozen masterpiece waiting inside. Lifting the slab with pride, he celebrates the special order he requested from the merchant. Admiring the cut, he remembers the lab-grown meat back on Earth and geeks out that this is actually real. Then comes that beautiful sizzle on the grill, a divine melody letting him know the steak is getting that perfect crust. Smiling smiling like an idiot, he breathes in that heavenly scent no scientist could ever replicate. Doji spawns out of nowhere drooling, but gets brushed off with the excuse that it's for the goddess. Outraged by his buddy's gluttony, Ari asks if the mandrake can even stomach all that food. Blushing hard, the poor girl panics, thinking she looks like some starving beast. Spotting her getting all jittery, Ari warns the owner, who quickly tosses the meat onto a plate, serving up that juicy steak. He even sweetly reminds her to blow on it first. The plot twist: she chucks the meat away, wildly gesturing that she just wants him safe. Completely floored, the kid is lost, guessing the boss must have gone hardcore vegan. Wanting to prove a point, he grabs his chopsticks and chews on a piece of the dropped food. Tasting it carefully, he notices it's decent, but it's definitely missing a certain kick. Comparing it to the divine apple, that fancy steak honestly tasted like hospital food. At this point, he looks at the goddess, assuming her refined palate just couldn't handle the meat. Except the poor girl is shaking in her boots, terrified of losing her guy in this upcoming war. Giving her a warm smile, he crouches down and gently pats her head before heading off into the chaos. Swearing he's gonna track down the perfect cut of meat, his sheer confidence leaves the pets completely dumbfounded. Close to midnight, the critters just pass out cold. Ari even scolds the pig while fast asleep. Right then, the sleepy little guy points over at the goddess, like he's trying to show something serious. Meanwhile, out in the yard, the mandrake is just staring into the night with this intense, dead-set look, ready for action. Far away, our guy reaches the edge of his turf and bumps right into a glowing barrier. Staring at the massive structure, he realizes this has to be the digital border for the sector. The glowing line slices right through the trees, splitting his safe zone from the dense, sketchy woods. Reaching out to touch it, the space actually ripples like water right in front of him. The system chimes in, asking if he wants to enter Sector 35N. He hits yes without a second thought. A loading screen pops up, dropping a hint that passes always refresh right at midnight. Reading that, he jokes how the game is trying to hold his hand just to cross the street, but then the vibe gets freezing cold. His flashlight dies out of nowhere and he grumbles about the cheap jump scare. As his vision adjusts, he finds himself in this damp, overgrown clearing that feels more like a jungle. Taking a good look around, he catches on real quick that the flora here is anything but friendly. A loud crack echoes from a branch. The MC jumps out of his skin, throwing his guard up instantly. Some weird mist starts gathering in the air above him, making him super on edge. And just like that, it morphs into a raging swarm of giant bugs with glowing red, hungry eyes. Seeing these nasty things dive bombing and blacking out the sky, our hero lets out a scream of pure terror. Whipping out his scythe, he shrieks, demanding to know what kind of mutant bees he's dealing with. Swinging wildly in a panic, but the blade is way too clunky for these lightning-fast targets. Realizing he's in deep trouble, it hits him that even his decapitation skill is useless against a swarm. All his courage evaporating on the spot, he announces he's dipping and makes a run for it. Except his grand escape gets cut short when his hand sinks into this gross, sticky barrier blocking the exit. Making matters even worse, hunted figures start popping out of the dirt like evil little mushrooms, literal zombies. He actually jokes around, asking if they're here to save him or just ruin his day. Striking a pose, the monsters just groan out that they'll focus on the bug problem for now, not planning to stick around and find out. The kid sprints for his life with a ghost hot on his heels. Glancing back while running, he notices the undead are practically acting like exterminators, wiping out the bugs. Slamming the brakes, he plants his feet, trying to process this chaotic mess while his lungs are burning. A golden opportunity presents itself. Let the mobs kill each other off while he sneaks away. Bursting into a crazy sprint, he dives through the barrier at the very last possible millisecond. The monster chasing him just glitches out at the boundary line, completely blocked from entering his turf. Tumbling into the grass, the pure relief of being back in the safe zone washes right over him. Sprawled out and gasping for air, he celebrates the fact that he didn't end up as bug food today. Out of nowhere, the system drops a notification killing adult stage monsters rewards some sweet bonus points. Sitting up in a flash, he wonders if outsourcing the kills to the undead actually counts toward his score. A wicked grin spreads across his face. He just stumbled into an infinite passive gold mine. Watching the zombies level up on the other side of the fence, he jokes about his new VIP customers. And suddenly, the grief for those sweet points completely overpowers our MC's fear. Cutting away, Wowan's assistant is about to lose her mind over thousands of phone calls flooding flooding the office. Looking completely exhausted, the boss sighs. The rumors about the healing fruit have spiraled out of control. Shaking with anger, he mutters how harmless gossip turned into a massive lie that's going to ruin their reputation. Leaning over the desk, the executive lays down the law setup and pretend the apple doesn't exist. The assistant nervously hints that keeping quiet might just feed the chaos, but he guarantees no one will spill a word. Flashing an icy glare, the suit insists that these rumor mongers need to be taught a tough lesson. Suddenly, all the color drains from the assistant's face. The temperature in the office plummets. Completely oblivious, he snaps at her, thinking she actually took his whole cutthroat business speech too seriously. Then it hits him. A cold shiver shoots up his spine as the dead silence in the room turns suffocating. Tumbling out of his chair, he looks up to see a dark figure pressing a very real blade against his throat. Standing right over him, the hooded intruder whispers a beautifully sarcastic apology to the big boss. Sweating bullets, the boss stammers that he has no clue who the target is, the steel practically shaving his neck, but Rohan just flashes a mocking grin, casually mentioning he already knows all about their little distribution ring. The suit begs, swearing it was all a huge coincidence, only to get cut off mid-sentence by the swordsman. Lifting the blade slightly, he threatens to dice the executive into ribbons if he doesn't cough up the address. Pure panic takes the wheel. The corporate guy is shaking so hard he can barely string two words together. In a move of ultimate cowardice, he throws his own assistant under the bus, telling her to explain everything. Boiling with rage, the girl cusses out her boss, blurting out that she had no idea they were dealing with armed psychos. Taking a deep breath, she glares right at Rohan, firmly stating that company confidentiality is sacred, refusing to sell out their clients' data. Meanwhile, her pathetic boss is actually giving her a thumbs up from the floor. Though she's putting up a tough front, the poor girl's legs are shaking like pure jello. Realizing this back and forth is going nowhere, Rohan gives up on diplomacy and hoists his sword up high. Screaming in terror, the duo grabs each other, fully convinced they're about to meet their maker. The heavy blade comes crashing down, sinking right into the floor just millimeters from the crybaby's toes. Glancing at his weapon, he cracks a joke about it being rusty, while the two office workers practically pass out. Turning his back, he just says he'll rely on his intuition to track the place down and strolls out. Still glued to the floor, the suits try to wrap their heads around that crazy intuition comment, until another employee whispers the truth that living legend's intuition acts like a divine GPS. Mind blown, the girl can't fathom a guy hunting down some apples using nothing but his sixth sense. 2 days later, the full moon is shining bright over our farmer's little sector. Leaning up against the door, Chan-Su starts grumbling about how ridiculously late this mysterious visitor is. Thinking back to the warning about some big-shot master swordsman, he expected the guy to at least knock. Chilling nearby, Hamble squeaks a joke that for an OP guy like that, the border is probably just a suggestion. Right on cue, the system alarms start blaring, flashing a massive intruder alert across the screen. Flashing a huge grin, the kid celebrates that the latecomer finally managed to find the right address. Going completely quiet, he waits to hear the main gate squeak open, but nothing happens. He figures the system must be bugging out since there isn't a single soul in sight. On second thought, this doesn't feel like a glitch. The air around him suddenly gets incredibly heavy. So, our hero decides to take a quick stroll to see if the dude got himself lost in the brush. That's when the kid freezes dead in his tracks, staring at a scene that breaks every single rule in the game. A blinding beam of light is just slicing straight through the sector's barrier like it's tissue paper. Jot on the floor. He can't believe someone actually managed to slice open the system's digital boundary. A heavy boot steps right through the glowing tear, moving with this slow, terrifyingly calm pace. Stepping out of the glare, the guy's giving off an aura so insanely dense it's making the actual ground shake. Spotting that famous face, Chan-Su realizes he's staring at the legendary Rohan in the flesh. Slicing right through the tension, the man gets straight to business, asking if he's the one growing those apples. The kid introduces himself and asks about the whole breaking and entering thing, only to hear the guy just came for some grocery shopping. Asking how many he needs, the living legend doesn't miss a beat. He wants 200 of them. Yelling in disbelief, the MC shuts him down, saying the strict limit is 50 per customer. Visibly bummed out, the hardcore master deflates like a kid dropping his ice cream, leaving our farmer pretty speechless. Dropping the price at 200,000 coins a pop, the visitor just nods, not even blinking at the crazy cost. Chilling on his owner's shoulder, Hamdel whispers that he he better at least throw in a free grocery bag. Keeping up his stoic vibe, Rohan agrees to the massive markup without asking for a single discount. Wavering a bit, our hero debates just selling him 100 right now to hit his bonus quota faster. Shaking on the deal, a magical chime echoes through the trees, almost like nature itself was watching them. Leading the warrior through the orchard, the kid strolls past several baskets already packed and good to go. Glancing out the corner of his eye, he sees the man looking dead serious, assuming that's just pure warrior inner peace. Little did he know, this massive brute was practically drooling on the inside, desperately wanting to gorge on everything. Pointing dead ahead, the farmer mentions the 50 apples they agreed on are growing right on those trees. At that exact second, the system UI flares up, triggering the massive blessing of abundance. With a flick of his wrist, pure green energy makes the apples glow up, leaving the master swordsman completely starstruck. Just like that, a picture-perfect apple sprouts right out of the dead branch. Then, like absolute magic, the whole tree flushes red, instantly loaded with flawless fruit. Grabbing a basket, our guy asks the customer to hold tight for just a sec while he harvests them. But Rohan isn't exactly the patient type. He tells the kid to step back and casually draws his sword. In the blink of an eye, the swordsman dashes straight at the orchard, slicing the air with one fluid motion. His blade leaves a trail of light tearing right through the space. The sheer shockwave knocks dozens of apples loose, popping them off the branches, without a single scratch. Spinning in this crazy martial arts ballet, he catches all 50 of them with pinpoint accuracy. Watching the apples hover in midair before vanishing into inventory, the kid's jaw hits the floor. Then the system chimes in, confirming a massive divine deposit of 10 million coins hitting his account. Stashing his payment card, the OP master turns his back, casually dropping that he'll swing by some other time. Panicking, the MC yells at him to wait up, watching his golden goose walk away. Flashing back to those nasty bugs, it hits him. With a bodyguard like this, he'd be untouchable. Catching up to the legend, he pitches some other crops and gets asked what else is on the menu. He instantly brings up potatoes, but Rohan just shrugs, shutting him down flat. Pushing his luck with sweet potatoes and beans, the big guy just stares blankly like he despises veggies. Seeing his VIP customer actually leaving, desperation kicks in. Time to play his trump card. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he promises the man an infinite supply of apples. Bingo. Rowan stops dead in his tracks, completely hooked by those magic words. Breaking down the hustle, the kid explains he needs to conquer new zones to expand the stockpile, so he pitches the ultimate deal. Endless fruit if the swordsman helps clear out the neighboring sector. But then a cold sweat hits him, wondering if he just pushed his luck asking a living legend for a massive favor. Rohan just stands there in silence, his mind already drooling over the thought of an all-you-can-eat buffet. Turning his head, that intense look says it all. He's all in. Shaking while waiting for an answer, the MC watches the guy throw up 2 fingers, sealing the pact. Just like that, the deal is locked. The farm just scored a heavyweight bodyguard. Zero hesitation, Rohan dashes straight for the border, forcing the kid to sprint just to keep up. Huffing and puffing behind him, our farmer genuinely wonders if this monster is scared of anything at all. Suddenly, his foot sinks into something foul, a quick reminder that this new zone is bad news. Cursing his awful luck, he whines about always ending up in swamps filled with toxic green sludge. Taking another blind step, his leg plunges ankle-deep into some seriously nasty muck. Scraping off the grime, he kicks himself for not wearing proper boots into this mess. Glancing up to check on his new partner, he finds himself face to face with a bizarre looming shadow. The creature lunges right at him, earning a high-pitched scream of pure panic from our brave hero. Quick on the draw, Rohan swoops in, grabs the kid by the collar, and just chucks him backward like a sack of potatoes. Shouting out a warning, the swordsman couldn't care less that he just threw his new boss 10 meters through the air. Shaking off the rough landing, the kid squints at the threat, not really sure if it even qualifies as a monster. Getting a better look, he spots the gnarly roots and massive thorns of some mutated savage plant. And just like that, the fear vanishes. Pure greed takes over as he declares this weed is exactly what he needed. Right on cue, the system flashes a golden tip, practically begging him to use his decapitation skill. Using the giant warrior as a meat shield, he flashes an evil smirk and tells Rohan to step aside. One clean swing, a burst of green light reduces the beast to a shower of chopped leaves. Buffed by the goddess's blessing, our boy bulldozes through the swamp, clearing the weeds like an absolute machine. But right in the middle of the chaos, a blurry figure comes sprinting through, tripping over the giant leaves. It's Sujin. She naturally steps right into into that same gross puddle and starts cursing up a storm from the cold. Whining about the awful conditions, she demands they build a gate ASAP so she never has to hike this awful trail again. Still running full tilt, she blasts past them like there's a nightmare monster hot on her heels. The kid shouts her name, but she completely ignores him, just way too panicked to care. Bam! She crashes headfirst right into our MC, letting out a massive shriek. Quickly fixing her posture, she slaps on a fake smile, trying to play it cool after sprinting for her life. Kneeling down to check the dirt, the kid feels super awkward while Rohan just watches the bizarre scene unfold. Frowning, the swordsman mentally questions what kind of weird comedy sketch is happening in this swamp. Taking charge, Sujin steps up and clears her throat, ready to demand some answers. Staring at the odd duo, she asks what in the world is actually going on here. He tries explaining his big expansion plan, but she immediately loses her patience. Leaning in close, she aggressively whispers, "Why is the legendary Rohan hanging out with you?" Rubbing the back of his neck, the kid awkwardly tries to explain how this bizarre team-up even happened. While they bicker, Rohan doesn't even blink, just casually slicing up a mutant plant creeping too close. Glad the path is clear, the kid asks if the master had been waiting long for some actual action. Sticking to his classic edgy persona, the giant just stays completely silent and intimidating. But the second the kid brings up those fresh apples, the OP warrior finally shows a tiny spark of interest. Glancing around the muck, he openly admits he's curious if anything edible could actually grow in this literal sewer. Forcing a smile, the farmer agrees that planting anything in the sludge is practically impossible. Unbothered, Rowan just turns around, grips his sword, and channels his energy for a massive swing. A massive green shockwave flattens the swamp, turning the wet sludge into solid ground while our MC stares in shock. Heart pounding, he quickly realizes that having a top-tier hunter doing the heavy lifting is a massive cheat code. Stammering from excitement, he tells his new business partner they'll be seeing a lot of each other, begging him to drop the formalities. An assistant walks it in, flashing a notification that the blessing of abundance is officially active. Finishing up his explanation for Sujin, the poor girl just looks even more confused and annoyed by this madness. Walking over to a lone, weird-looking tree, she points at it, asking if this is the new apple batch. Scrutinizing it, the merchant pinches her nose, complaining about the incredibly funky smell coming off the branches. Shrugging it off, our guy agrees, joking that pleasant aromas aren't exactly this swamp's strong suit. Explaining how the harsh climate actually boosts the flavor, he mentions he's just dumping some stat points into the fruit as an experiment. He offers her a bite. She practically jumps back, stating she'd very much like to keep her stomach intact. Still holding her nose, she looks beyond miserable dealing with the nasty stench of this little farm experiment. Spotting the leftovers Rohan chopped up, she guesses it's the legendary ostrich buttweed. The kid immediately chokes on his own spit. She drops some lore, explaining that the plant is incredibly rare, usually burying its head in the dirt like a scared bird during the day. Scooping up some pink sap into a vial, she's completely blown away by the purity, wondering how it was harvested so flawlessly. She asks if the kid seriously hunted this thing down by himself. He just nods, casually asking if there's an issue. Out of nowhere, Sujin snaps. She grabs the kid by the collar and shakes the living daylights out of him, screaming that he needs to sell her those plants right this second. Terrified, he instantly agrees just to make it stop. Double-checking to make sure the sword strikes didn't ruin the goods, he watches his merchant buddy jumping for joy over the huge profit. She spins around with this massive, greedy grin, looking like she just hit the ultimate jackpot. Watching from the sidelines, Rohan finds the kid to be a bizarre little prodigy, but honestly, he's just glad to be along for the ride. Seeing her finally calm down from her little freakout, the MC asks what's up. She gives a thumbs up, saying the loot is perfect. Remembering his actual shopping list, he asks for the bug repellent seeds and the instant house kit he ordered for his guests. Nodding along, the girl dives deep into her magical delivery bag, digging around for his packages. Pulling out 2 items, she hands over the repellent grass and a neat little instant build capsule, telling them to step back for a sec. The kid braces himself for the magical light show. Poof! A cozy wooden cabin spawns out of nowhere, surrounded by a gorgeous sea of fragrant flowers. Wide-eyed, the merchant can't wrap her head around how a whole garden just bloomed in under 3 seconds flat. Staring at him like he's an alien, she genuinely questions if he's even human anymore. Meanwhile, our guy just strikes a proud, epic pose. Back at the temple, the pets are throwing a massive party, sensing that they just made history today. His finger hovers over the glowing system panel, aiming right for the territory purchase tab, shouting that this turf is finally theirs. The screen blinks, officially transferring ownership to the Abundance faction. Skimming through the boring rules, he flexes that he's officially a landowner after just 10 days of grinding. The game logic says there are 100 sectors in a block. Buy them all, and you're the undisputed king of the whole zone. A goofy grin spreads across his face. Back on Earth, he could barely scrape together rent for a tiny box apartment. Turns out, being the boss unlocks some sick perks. The best one? Giving the entire zone a brand new custom skin. Reading through the system prompt, he figures his choice has to make his goddess swell with pride. Staring down the panel, he figures picking the death theme for the abundance faction is just a huge mistake. So, he goes with growth, thinking it perfectly fits the boss's vibe and is great for leveling up the zone. The system locks in his choice, and the grass beneath his feet instantly glows this bright neon green. Waiting for some epic pet evolution sequence, he notices the little guys look exactly the same. He figures the magic is just weak since it's only level 1. But hey, at least they've got the cuteness factor down. Digging through the stat screens to read the fine print, the kid spots a major catch. Eyes popping wide open, he finds out the buff also strengthens the base stats of all the monsters. Yelling in sheer frustration, the MC can't believe he's basically funding a gym for the bad guys. Cutting over to a super sketchy area, the sector's new energy is already kicking in. Watching the shadows actually bubbling up, he quickly catches on that this upgrade is a huge double-edged sword. The downside becomes crystal clear as the zombies start bulking up, looking way more hostile than before. Putting on his game face, our hero decides to just roll with the silver lining of this massive mess. Dashing through the woods, he realizes he can still wipe the floor with these mobs without breaking a sweat. Then comes that greedy little smirk. Knowing bigger targets mean way juicier point drops. Right in the middle of this crazy grind, he senses an aura and spots Rohan just casually strolling up. Asking if he just got here, he gets a nod with that classic, ice-cold stoic vibe. And when the kid tries cashing in on their so-called friendship, the master just looks away, clearly weirded out by the word. Caught off guard by the quick return, the former remembers that massive stash barely lasted a week. Flashing back to those crazy newspaper rumors, he honestly worries his top buyer might just overdose on apples right then and there. Asking how many he wants this time, he pitches the upgraded flavor and hears that more is always better. So, he offers up a free sample, but the living legend just gives a stiff, blunt nod. Meanwhile, over in a nearby clearing, the pet squad is living it up with a little vacation picnic. Pure peaceful vibes. The crew is just kicking back, soaking in that sweet country lifestyle, until a heavy boot thuds into the dirt, and a super dark voice questions why they're all so happy. Jumping out of their fur, the little guys stare up at the two newcomers, completely clueless. Panic mode engaged. The kid freaks out seeing the goddess and his squad sitting right in the middle of an active training zone. Squinting its tiny eyes, the chick instantly pegs the swordsman as a massive creep, sending a cold shiver right down its spine, feeling the master's aura cutting through the air like a razor blade. Shaking like a leaf, the poor bird swears this OP dude gives off major butcher energy. Seeing the light bounce off that huge sword, the pet lets out a weak chirp, fully convinced it's about to become chicken soup. On the flip side, the warrior just finds the kid's familiars to be pretty exotic and unique. Desperate, the MC screams at the top of his lungs, begging his new partner to chill out. Except the sword slices the air in a blur so insanely fast that the sound actually lags behind. Diving for the dirt without a second thought, he shields his pets to block the worst-case scenario. Bracing for impact with his eyes squeezed shut, the owner realizes the squad wasn't even the target. Instead, a glowing, flawless fruit drops straight from the branch above, right at his feet. Glancing around, he spots his little buddies perfectly safe, realizing it was just a flashy harvest move. Jumping to his feet, absolutely fuming from the heart attack, he whines about almost dying of fright for no reason. Completely unfazed, Rohan explains he felt some sacred energy in the area the second he swung, and he cuts straight to the chase, asking to rent the turf so he can focus on some hardcore training. Freezing on the spot, the kid's ears immediately perk up the second the word rent drops. Gulping hard, he tries to keep his poker face, casually asking how many digits we're talking about here. Dead serious, the living legend casually drops an offer of 10 million a month for the spot. The MC's eyes turn into dollar signs, flashing a massive ear-to-ear grin at the giant payout. Grabbing the rich guy's hand with an iron grip, he seals the deal without a single second thought. Celebrating like crazy, he upgrades the dude to VIP status, already picturing actual mountains of gold, almost tearing up from joy. He realizes the cost of buying seeds is just pocket change now. But right after shaking on it, he confesses he's a bit paranoid about the collateral damage from this hardcore training. His mind immediately drifting off, picturing the sky cracking under the sheer pressure of those all-P sword swings. Except Rohan promises he won't wreck too much, forcing the MC to nervously swallow that vague answer. The kid drops a warning that that he's broke, on points to spawn training mobs, but Rohan just shrugs it off. The OP legend points over to a quiet little corner, saying he only needs a small patch of dirt to work with. Surprised by how low maintenance the guy is, the MC asks if that's really it and gets a blunt yes. Nodding along, his inner hustler brain starts spinning, already cooking up another pitch. Flashing that ruthless business shark look, he tells the master this deal is about way more than just cash. No beating around the bush. He drops the heavy request he wants to hire the legend as full-time security. Thinking it over, the farm's crazy success was bound to attract some nasty jealousy, potentially sparking a full-blown turf war. So, having one of the strongest guys on the planet acting as a meat shield would be the ultimate peace of mind. Keeping his eyes on the prize, he's got to secure his own survival to become a top-tier returner. The master agrees, but only for a 50,000-point buff and a sweet 10-apple daily allowance on the house, mentioning he still wants to buy extra on the side, leaving his new boss speechless at this bottomless appetite. While the big boys talk business, the goddess's pets watch from a distance, radiating pure doom and gloom. Whispering nervously, Ari hears from the pig that this terrifying butcher is officially moving in with them. Way too hyped, the kid celebrates, fully betting the goddess will be thrilled to have a legend watching their backs. Spotting the squad hiding in the bushes, he starts suspecting he just raised a gang of cowardly introverts. Calling the legend over to meet the crew, the pets just shrink back like terrified victims, pushing them to show some manners. The kid only sees pure horror plastered across the creatures' faces. Trying to be friendly in his own edgy way, the giant's heavy aura practically crushes the tiny pets. The result is obvious. The little squad scatters in tears, completely ignoring their owner swearing the guy is actually nice. Flashing an awkward, forced laugh at his VIP customer, he drops a weak excuse about the gang just being super shy. Trying to kill the painful silence, our hero quickly decides to shift the focus back to the grind. Announcing the contract starts right now, he casually mentions he's already got their very first quest lined up. Marching into a sector swarming with carnivorous plants, the duo gears up to completely wipe the floor with them. Fast forward a bit, the scene cuts to the two of them strolling through a freshly revitalized orchard. Catching the legend closing his eyes to savor an apple, the kid knows for a fact this dude is hopelessly addicted. Taking advantage of the chill downtime, he decides to pull the trigger and buy up the rest of the turf. Bringing his finger right to the glowing system panel, the boss gets ready to stamp the faction's name on the map. Right away, the screen lights up, confirming this fresh patch of land officially belongs to Abundance. Nudging his partner, the warrior snaps out of his trance, instantly feeling a massive surge of life energy in the air. Blown away, the master asks what just happened, watching the swamp transform into a gorgeous flower field. Then, the duo freezes in pure shock, staring at something that just spawned out of thin air. The camera focuses right on these tiny green plants that look exactly like some prime catnip. Next thing you know, a little black kitten appears, rolling around in the weeds and leaving the kid completely confused. Racking his brain and remembering normal animals don't spawn here, he guesses it has to be some kind of spirit or monster. Face planted in the flowers looking like he's in pure ecstasy, this little furball seems harmless enough. The Rohan instantly scowls, barking at the kid hold up before getting anywhere near that thing. Our MC brushes off the warning and dives right in for some head pets, thinking this beast is just a cute little pet. Except, out of nowhere, the purring stops dead, and those cat eyes lock onto him with massive dilated pupils. The beast suddenly leaps backward and triples in size, making the kid scream bloody murder for help. He catches his breath with his heart pounding out of his chest, admitting he almost had a full-blown panic attack right there. Then, a glaring red system prompt pops up right in his face, leaving the poor guy scratching his head. He reads the message in a panic, realizing the Injustice faction just declared war on his block. Mind blown, he can't wrap his head around starting a whole turf war just by petting a stray cat. When he asks Rohan if this furball is the dreaded apostle, the master just sighs and shakes his head. No. Still pushing his theory, the kid swears this oversized cat was the spark that lit the powder keg. The swordsman quickly corrects him, spelling it out. The real beef is with the beast's entire faction. Breaking it down, he warns that a massive wave of invaders is about to cross the border, which leaves our hero wide-eyed. Suddenly, a heavy dose of guilt hits him, since fighting actual humans is a whole different ballgame compared to monsters. But Rohan shoots him this cold, deadpan look, telling him to just swing away without an ounce of guilt. Even with the green light to go all out, the kid's stomach still does flips at the thought of taking a life. Then comes the plot twist. The master drops the bomb that the Injustice crew actually revives every single time. Once he compares it to a video game checkpoint, it finally clicks. It's just straight up respawn mechanics. He gets instantly ticked off at this infinite live cheat code these guys are running in the system. system. Clenching his fists, he decides to teach them a lesson, showing them that the sting of defeat still hurts like hell. He grips his scythe, asks the master for some cover fire, and sprints off to protect his precious crops. As he rushes to the center of the field, a colossal blue portal rips right through the air, spitting out sparks everywhere. Right on cue, a massive skeleton army starts marching out, stepping in perfect creepy formation. The Injustice lackeys stroll in right behind the Bone Squad, laughing it up like it's some big joke. One of the goons whips out a megaphone and barks at the farmer to hand over the apples. Meanwhile, over at the alchemy shop, Sujin is sprawled out on the couch, racking her brain until it hurts. She stares blankly at the ceiling, trying to connect the dots on all the crazy stunts this kid has pulled so far. Flashing back to her chat with Rohan, she admits our MC is an unsolved mystery. She thinks about his crazy raw power, how he effortlessly blends high-tier combat with this weird talent for farming apples. The swordsman even hinted the kid was someone truly special, a guy who breaks all the rules. It blows her mind just trying to figure out how someone masters a deadly scythe and hardcore agriculture at the exact same time. If you do the math on his age, it should be flat out impossible to max out two entirely different skill trees this early. She wonders if he might be a rejuvenated master in disguise, but the timeline just doesn't line up no matter how she cuts it. Snapping her fingers, the shop girl realizes there's only one logical answer. He's got to be using some kind of overpowered artifact, since only a god-tier relic could ever explain him borrowing that much raw power. Except she instantly scraps that idea, because without 100% compatibility, a high-tier item won't even activate. Groaning and flopping back onto the couch, she just throws in the towel on figuring this guy out. Suddenly jumping up in a panic, it hits her. The kid is currently rooming with a legit swordmaster. Realizing she just yelled that out loud to an empty room, she looks around, dying of embarrassment. Over in the corner, the head alchemist is staring her down, judging her hardcore. He's watching the clerk in dead silence, like he's looking at some weird exotic zoo animal. Getting all defensive, Sujin snaps at him, asking if he's lost something on her face. The guy just holds up a test tube and skips the small talk, wanting to confirm exactly where this rare sap came from. Not even waiting for an answer, the boss grabs her by the shoulders and desperately demands the coordinates. She whines out of sheer frustration. She really just wanted one single minute of peace on this chaotic day. Cutting back to the farm, the portal is still spitting out endless reinforcements for the enemy squad. As the skeletons march forward, a massive wall of bones forms right in front of the shot callers, and the Injustice crew just watches with arrogant smugness, acting like this territory is already theirs for the taking. Peeking from the bushes, our MC guesses they're just scouts, but Rohan's pretty sure they're just flat out stupid. After sizing up those basic tier skeletons, the kid realizes he can clean this up with his eyes closed. The megaphone guy snaps him out of his thoughts, screaming that they don't have all day. Stepping in a puddle, the leader starts warning about the muddy terrain like a massive diva. He scrapes off his boot in a huff and goes right back to barking orders, demanding those apples right now. Finding the whole scene bizarre, our MC can't believe they're treating a raid like a casual trip to the mall. He figures it's just the arrogant swagger of guys who know they can respawn, and Rohan backs that up 100%. Shaking off those pre-fight jitters, he suddenly remembers his hidden ace in the hole. Just glancing over and catching sight of the imposing swordsman is enough to wash away any remaining fear. I mean, with a top-tier bodyguard like that watching his back, our hero can't help but crack a cocky smile. Right then, the Injustice suit spots the tall grass wrestling and instantly goes on high alert. The kid steps out of cover and casually strolls up all by himself, leaving the enemy front lines baffled. Spotting the farming scythe, the invader actually laughs out loud, mocking the idea of taking on an entire army with gardening tools. He orders him to drop the tough guy act and hand over the loot before they chop his head off, but Chansu just tightens his grip on the handle, feeling the raw energy of abundance surging right through his veins. He catches flack from some random lackey, who sneers and asks if he's planning to harvest all of them today. They were expecting some flashy magic attack or him begging for mercy, but the kid just stands there, cool as ice. Finally losing his cool, the boss screams that the Injustice faction runs this turf. Flashing a little smirk, our MC realizes he was stressing over nothing. These guys are just a bunch of low-level amateurs. That fearless attitude leaves the raiding party stunned, especially since they usually walk in on people crying for their lives. Sure, the enemy base might be miles away, but his OP grandpa is chilling right there in the bushes, ready to wreck house. Grinding his teeth, the squad leader barks out one final warning to hand over the goods. Letting out a massive yawn, the kid just tells them to hit up a grocery store if they're that hungry. Turning purple with rage, the rival snarls, asking if he's ready to face the brutal consequences. Going for maximum disrespect, our hero drops a classic 5th grade yo mama joke right to his face, though instant regret washes over him a second later, realizing he might have pushed pushed the trash talk a little too far. Trying to backtrack, his messy explanation somehow lands even worse, sounding like the ultimate insult. The leader is practically vibrating with sheer hatred, while his goons whisper in the back, deeply shocked by the disrespect. Panicking, the poor guy waves his hands, swearing it was all just a huge misunderstanding with his summon. But the enemy boss just screams for his head, done listening to any of his weak excuses. Jumping back to the alchemy shop, the guy in the suit is ruthlessly demanding answers from Sujin. He waves the vial in her face, demanding to know if Master Rohan was the one who extracted the sap. She stutters, desperately trying to keep the secret safe, but he insists that only a high-level master could pull off a cut this clean. Playing dumb, she shifts into fancy sales clerk mode, firmly stating that client details are strictly confidential. He quickly apologizes for being so pushy and admits he's sweating over the massive payout a grandmaster would demand. With a hopeful glimmer in his eye, he asks if he's gonna get hit with some outrageous harvesting fee. Damn near crying tears of relief, he admits hiring a top-tier specialist would straight-up bankrupt his shop. Snapping back to business mode, he realizes he just stumbled onto a massive gold mine, and he refuses to let it slip away. He explains to Sujin how this specific plant spoils incredibly fast, requiring some surgically precise cuts to harvest. Yet the batch she brought in is a true alchemy miracle, rocking a purity level he's never seen in his life. He tucks the sample into his pocket like it's a priceless diamond, blissfully unaware of the kid's crazy harvesting hack. Swiping open a holographic contract, he immediately offers to buy out every single ounce of stock they can provide. Sujin mentions she needs to clear it with her boss first, but nods along, sealing the deal right then and there. Pen in hand, she still can't believe her crazy stroke of luck bumping into this kid. The alchemist throws her a cheeky wink, promising that their shop's doors will always be wide open for her. Jumping back to the chaotic battlefield, the skeleton horde charges forward, making that creepy, rattling bone noise with every step. Pointing a finger right at our hero, the boss orders his troops to crush this arrogant brat once and for all. Letting out a heavy sigh, our MC finally accepts that he's gotta do this the hard way. Meanwhile, the squad leader can't wrap his head around the kid's icy calm, just standing there, tanking the skeleton charge head-on. Sizing up the bony foot soldiers, he actually jokes around, asking if these guys were pumped out on some cheap assembly line. Right on cue, the system chimes in, announcing that his badass mass decapitation skill is ready to trigger. And in a blinding flash of green light, the front skeleton's head goes flying into the stratosphere, instantly flipping the script. Zero time to react. The light cursed perfectly, wiping out the second zombie on the spot. Then the third, the fourth. Heads just start dropping like ripe apples during harvest season. Just by twitching his fingers, the kid controls multiple energy sides spinning right through the air. Smiling to himself, he realizes this power is flawless, pretty much like weeding a garden full of bones. Looking completely stunned, the Injustice leader screams, demanding to know what kind of farmer magic this even is. Skulls dough flying everywhere, crashing into each other like bowling pins and taking down the whole army. 1 minute later, it's just a pile of bone dust. And our MC, just casually wiping his scythe clean. Sweating bullets, the enemy boss stares in shock, asking what the hell he actually is. Stepping right over the remains, the kid jokes about how weak the mobs were, saying they clearly lacked calcium. Pointing his weapon forward, he tells the survivors to give up right now, or the cleanup crew is gonna keep working. But the leader just curses out his fallen monsters while his human goons stumble back trembling, pulling out this creepy purple pendant. The invader announces he's bringing out his trump card, glowing with this blinding green light. The amulet charges up as he warns our boy that he's finished. Slams the item onto the ground. A massive magic circle opens up, and he summons Hercules. A huge silhouette bursts out of the dirt, shaking the whole area, leaving the kid pretty impressed. The dust finally settles, revealing a super buff giant rocking a lion head right on his shoulder. Glaring at it, Chansu thinks the real Hercules should honestly sue whoever designed this thing. Taking offense to that, the leader yells that this beast cost him 30 million gold. Letting out a massive roar, the monster charges at the kid like a runaway freight train. Doing some quick math in his head, our MC realizes this villain is about to take a colossal financial hit. And right as the beast slams a brutal punch into the ground, Chansu dodges it without breaking a sweat. Refusing to let up, the muscle-bound giant keeps throwing punches, desperate to crush our hero. Leaning all the way down, the creature ends up face-to-face with the MC, winding up for the final blow. Looking straight up, the kid mocks him, thanking the big guy for bending over like that. For a split second, the beast looks confused, clearly not getting why this human is laughing in his face. face. Then, with one flawless spin, Chansu swings his scythe and slices the huge monster right down the middle. Dead silence. The invading leader goes into pure shock, refusing to believe what his eyes are seeing. 10 years of savings straight down the drain, just watching his precious investment lying there in pieces. Shaking with rage, the guy spins around and starts screaming at the purple-haired woman nearby. But Soy just lets out a mocking little laugh, asking where all that big confidence went. She drops the news that her guide services are officially over, so any extra help is gonna cost him big time. Taking a deep breath, the MC wonders if it's finally over, really hoping there's no second phase to this boss fight. Except the vibe suddenly shifts out of nowhere. A tight smile creeps onto his face, pure survival instinct kicking in. Staring Soy down, he catches that glowing red look in her eyes, and jokes about her just being there for decoration. And the villain's eye flashes like hot coal, locking a dark, heavy power straight onto the kid, making our boy break into a cold sweat instantly, feeling this massive pressure crushing his chest. Right then, the system flashes a red alert, warning him that a curse is currently taking effect. A wicked aura wraps all around the woman, and a cross shape appears in her eye, showing off her real strength. Slicing right through that aura, Rohan flashes in front of Chansu like a lightning bolt to guard him. A cracked system screen pops up, blaring that the danger level just spiked way off the charts. Watching the villain flare up with energy, Grandpa completely ignores the enemy leader trembling on the ground. Chuckling to himself, the Swordmaster mentions how messing around in someone else's turf always ends badly. Meanwhile, Chansu squeezes his eyes shut, fighting off the curse deep inside his own head. Standing in all that red energy, the woman taunts Rowan, claiming he forgot why he even showed up here. Getting impatient, the apostle tells him to hurry it up, since she really has no time for silly games. Clicking his tongue, Grandpa starts getting seriously annoyed by how annoying this villain is acting. Spotting his opening, the cowardly leader books it, screaming over his shoulder that he'll get his revenge. Then the scene cuts to a clear, pale blue sky, miles away from all that messy swamp chaos. Still running for his life, the leader catches the sweet smell of apples and figures he finally hit the jackpot. Staring with pure greed, he decides it's only a matter of time before he's rolling in cash. But his heart turns to ice. A still shadow is watching him from deep within the trees. Drawing his weapon, he shouts, demanding to know who's hiding in this sector. Searching like a maniac, he doesn't even notice Rohan standing there like a statue right behind him. The guy feels a cold chill down his spine, quickly realizing he just made the worst mistake of his life. Catching the master's reflection, he stammers, saying there's no way he could possibly be here. Wasting zero time, the master swings his blade and wipes the invader out in the blink of an eye. The camera pans back to Chansu, who's now sitting on the pavement of a super modern city, clutching his head. Man, it feels like an 18-wheeler just backed right over him. Brain completely scrambled, the kid tries to remember the swamp fight and that nasty curse. Touching the cold ground, he's weirded out by this clean place, with no mud and zero monsters in sight. Looking around at the tall buildings, panic sets in as he thinks he somehow got sent back to Earth, watching kids run around without a care in the world. Such a peaceful vibe compared to that brutal wasteland. And soon enough, a very familiar voice echoes through the air, calling out his name. His parents show up holding grocery bags, asking where he's been hiding all this time. Frozen in his tracks, the kid starts tearing up, wondering if he's actually lost his mind. Forgetting everything else, he sprints toward his parents, praying that the nightmare is finally over. Throwing his arms around them for a tight hug, he breaks down crying, letting all that emotion pour out. Pouring his heart out, he talks about how much he missed them, begging them to never vanish like that again. Gripping their shoulders, our MC looks for any sign of confirmation that things are going to be okay now. Except his mom coldly swats his hand away, making the boy's heart race in an instant. Without saying a single word, the two of them start backing away into the fog, leaving him in sheer panic. Trying to run with legs that feel like lead, he begs them not to leave him alone again. But the whole place starts going dark, and the shapes of his parents slowly fade right into thin air. Dropping to his knees on the pavement, the kid is completely crushed, feeling that empty sting of abandonment, until a steady voice cuts through the silence, ordering him to wake up from this cruel trick. Placing a firm hand on his shoulder, Rohan tells the kid to focus and take back control of his own mind. And in a flash, the city is gone. The MC blinks, finding himself right back in the forest with the Swordmaster. Right nearby, the villain is on the ground trembling, asking what a Swordmaster is even doing out here. Getting up super slowly, Chansu wipes his face and shoots the woman this freakishly cold glare, his eyes burning with pure hatred. Because messing with his parents' memory? Yeah, fatal mistake. Watching his body shake with rage, Rohan notices the pressure coming from that scythe spiking hard. Wading through the dirty water, the master steps toward the enemy to put the final nail in her coffin. The villain actually tries to attack, but Rohan steps in like a brick wall, deflecting it with serious force. Screaming in panic, the woman finally feels real fear the second she sees the tip of his blade glow. Gritting his teeth, Chansu is locked in, ready to slice up whatever stands in his way. But Rohan beats him to it, delivering the final strike that sends the villain sinking into the swamp. As silence falls again, Grandpa asks if the kid is doing all right, or if his mind is still trapped back there. Taking a deep breath, the boy thanks him, admitting he really needed that reality check. Checking out the trail of destruction, the master tells him it's time to head back and asks what the next move is. Fired up with ambition, RMC declares he's going to build the strongest faction and take over this whole place. Asking the swordmaster to join him, Rohan jokes that he'll tag along in exchange for some extra apples. Relieved to hear that, Chansu promises to save the very best harvest from the farm just for Grandpa. Cutting over to the roof of the farmhouse, the calm vibe of the sunset takes over, and as the two of them stroll back, a tiny meow pops out from a nearby bush. It's the black cat. Chansu realizes he almost forgot about the little guy that started this entire war. Being sarcastic, Rohan points out that this little kitty is actually the super brutal territory devourer, but the cat doesn't even care, just chewing on some leaves on the ground, looking cute and harmless, bringing the three of them together in one shot, making up the most random, bizarre squad ever. Still not buying it, RMC thinks there's no way that little furball is actually some terrifying monster. Right then, the system chimes to signal the end of the war, dropping a screen to show the damage from their massive slaughter. Boom, the hammer drops. The faction gets slapped with a crushing punishment of 1 billion gold. Pacing behind bars, the invasion leader loses his freaking mind over the ridiculous price tag. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, the top brass are in full-blown panic mode. Right then, the prisoner lunges at the floating contract, swears up and down he's gonna pay off the debt. But suddenly the vibe shifts. The air gets heavy, and this nasty stench floods the room. He glances down the hall and freezes. Two massive, terrifying skeletons are staring right back. They drag him out, kicking and screaming while he begs for mercy. Click, clack. A woman in heels struts down the corridor, rocking a dead-eyed, freezing glare. She lands a brutal kick straight to his gut, complaining about what a massive embarrassment this mission was. Shaking like a leaf, the invader finally realizes who he's looking at. Choi Danha. She's one of the faction's big bosses, and she wants answers right freaking now. Leaning in with a deadly threat, she warns the poor guy to spill every single detail. Stuttering a mile a minute, the captive swears those legendary apples are the real deal. Dropping into a fancy chair, she scoffs. No way some random farmer caused this much damage. Screaming in panic, he blurts out that the master swordsman Rohan was guarding the place. That actually tracks for the boss. But hearing some kid took down an OP fighter like Soye? Total shocker. Chewing on the info, she connects the dots. Turns out it wasn't just her lackey's fault after all. Even so, a creepy smirk crawls across the villain's face. She's loving the sheer terror in his eyes. Grabbing him by the jaw, she casually mentions that the farm could probably use some extra hands. Right on cue, the system kicks off an official negotiation with RMC. Still clutching the leader's neck, she orders the losers to work off their debt on that very land. A prompt pops up confirming they're going to be held captive until things cool down. Beyond terrified, he warns who the owners would never let random strangers onto their turf. Whispering in this super dark tone, the woman admits she's actually pretty curious. Her twisted little plan? Mutating living people into monsters right on the farm's sacred soil. Dropping the ultimate ultimatum, she tells him to figure out a way inside. No excuses. Not taking no for an answer, the order is crystal clear. Reach the place at all costs. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, our boy is staring down this giant black cat, sweating bullets. Rowan calms his buddy down, explains the beast is just here to snack on the actual land. Freaking out instantly, the kid thinks it's pure madness that this thing wants to eat the property deed for dinner. Locking eyes with the feline, he tries to wrap his head around how a legal right can be chewable. He checks the system and breathes a massive sigh of relief. His land ownership is still fully intact. Just then, the swordmaster points out to the field, blaming the whole mess on some wild catnip. In complete disbelief, the MC grumbles about how this fluffy animal is actually a terrifying monster. Spotting the withered herb on the ground, he gears up to handle the situation himself. He hovers his hands over the leaves. The earth's energy practically begs for life. Tapping into his verdant skill, flowers bloom in the blink of an eye. Channeling magic straight into the herb, it shoots up, releasing this irresistible scent. Offering up the fresh snack, the dark feline drifts over, looking completely hypnotized. Rolling onto its back, the beast begs for belly rubs. dangerous, leaves the kid super confused. Giving it some scratches, he realizes the animal is incredibly soft and fluffy. Trying to stay focused, our MC reminds himself he's petting a highly dangerous monster. Time to strike a deal. He offers infinite catnip in exchange for guarding the property. The beast agrees, so the farm owner mentions they need a catchy short name. Graham suggests something super basic. The cat almost takes his head off out of pure insult. Stepping in, our farmer suggests calling the furball Night Sky. Instantly, the pet sits up all majestic, waiting for some fancy reasoning. Smooth talking his way through, the kid spins a poetic excuse about its eyes and fur. Beyond satisfied, the kitty gives itself a groom, fully embracing the new identity. Crisis averted. The MC chuckles while Rohan grumbles, still salty about getting rejected. But peace never lasts. A weird buzz from the system catches him completely off guard. Reading the pop-up, the message flashes that he actually won the turf war. Right below that, a ridiculous 1 billion coin prize. The guy turns pale. Whipping around to face the swordmaster, he freaks out over the massive jackpot. More screens pop up. Confirms the defeated invaders just became debt slaves. Remembering all the damage to his farm, the kid curses out the system. Swears he just got scammed. Later on, night falls, bringing this huge wave of calm over the farm's green fields. Chilling on the porch, our MC watches the little critters sleeping peacefully on the leaves. Whispering a quick thanks, he admits to the goddess that he's genuinely happy here. He lets out a heavy sigh. That battle illusion of his parents comes rushing back. Voice cracking, he vents about how seeing his folks like that really messed him up. Squeezing his eyes shut, the sting of missing them hits his chest hard. Clenching his fist, he decides to use that grief as fuel. Time to push even further. He declares his goal out loud, a promise to turn this farm into the biggest one in the entire world. Oozing pure determination under the moonlight, the kid fully embraces his role as the master. Flashing a soft smile, he makes a big vow. He's gonna restore the goddess back to her true form. Overwhelmed with emotion, the tiny goddess cries tears of joy, latching onto his leg for a massive hug. Fast forward to dinner, our farmer stares at Rohan, not believing what he's seeing. Shaking his head, the young guy finds the old man's eating habits completely bizarre. The craziest part? Gramps ignores the entire feast just to hyper-focus on the sacred apples. Rambling about protein, the master just keeps chewing, claiming he already paid for them. Exhausted, our boy gives up trying to reason with this stubborn, fruit-addicted warrior. Watching his mascots happily chowing down, the cook finally feels a bit better. Still creeped out, the farm leader watches the old dude practically kiss the apple before taking a bite. Face-palming hard, he just sits there listening to the loud crunching echoing across the table. Giving it one last shot, the kid offers a slice of pie to mix up the menu. But the old guy just guards his apple stash like a hawk. Annoys the youth so much he stops trying to help. Throwing in the towel for good, the farmer lets his partner enjoy his weird diet in peace. Glancing around, a heavy silence falls over the house's little crew of familiars. They're all sprawled out with full bellies. Brings a huge smile to the cook's face, teasing the tiny divine plant. The guy compliments the meal in this super cute way. Panic sweeps the room. The mascot crew freezes up at the sheer disrespect. But he's acting casual on purpose. Gotta keep the swordmaster from blowing their disguise. Missing the memo, the little chick goes into a blind rage, demands some respect for the divine patron. Chewing him out hard, the bird makes the boss mentally draft an apology for later. Not understanding a single word, the swordsman sips his apple juice without a care in the world. While the chick throws a massive tantrum, the little pig tells everyone to chill out. Slipping on some slick sunglasses, the porker plays detective and completely cracks the code. He points out that Rohan doesn't know the secret, proving their master's play is actually genius. Connecting the dots, the chubby dude shows how being formal would wreck the whole disguise. Hating her buddy's smug attitude, the martial bird loses her cool and throws down. Choking the poor guy out, she drops a threat about turning him into bacon that spooks everyone. Sweating bullets, the chubby pig switches topics. Fakes a sudden intense love for apples. Stuttering in panic, he begs for peace and tries to shift the vibe back to teamwork. Spooked out of his mind, the jokester blurts out random nonsense, just trying to escape. In a flash, a clean strike smashes his stylish shades right into the floor. Ready to head out, the human calls out to the little sacred root, gives her another massive jump scare. Noticing the patron saint looking down, he mentions their friend is arriving soon with a ton of supplies. Telling them to hold down the fort, he gears up to trek across the zone. Unable to believe his sheer nerve, the deity flips her lid over actually taking orders. Smiling, he admits he knew the truth all along, keeping the clash a secret just to protect the plant. Gently stroking its leaf, he tells it to hang tight until he gets back. Watching from a distance, the swordsman is just dumbfounded by this bizarre connection. Stomping over, the old man pulls the kid aside for a serious chat. Pausing in confusion, the young MC actually thinks they forgot some gear, but the master drops some wisdom. Time plays tricks, and a single day on Earth could be an eternity in here. warning him not to let impatience ruin such a massive journey. Grateful for the advice, he jokes that 1,000,000,000 gold isn't gonna collect itself. So before vanishing down the trail, the kid gives one last wave to the animals. Right then, the goddess whips out a tiny handkerchief, crying her eyes out alongside the other beasts. Glancing at the hamster, our MC asks if he's ready for an adventure. Digging into his bag, he promises those system points weren't wasted, leaving the little guy utterly clueless about his owner's grand plan. Then he pops out a high-end, fully padded pet carrier with a panoramic view. Tossing the rodent inside, it instantly loves the cozy setup and the chance to travel without moving a muscle. Strapping the pouch to his waist, the kid tells the squad it's time to hit the road. Heading straight for the border, they're ready to expand their turf and show everyone who's boss. Stepping through a giant portal, they're greeted by a vibrant, breathing landscape. Grinning from ear to ear, he finally tastes true freedom, traveling without any chains holding him back. Realizing this gate was easily the best investment of his entire life. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to the farmer. It's Sujin, hyped up as usual. Petting the cat, she sighs in relief, mentioning the rumors of his victory are already spreading. Playing it cool, he replies that with the master clearing the way, it felt more like a tutorial run. And then he casually drops a bomb that the swordsman is now his personal bodyguard and moving into the block. Shocking the poor girl to her core, he just shrugs it off like it's completely normal. Taking a deep breath, she admits that with this kid, she really should expect the impossible by now. Right after she spots the black cat trailing behind him and asks where he scored such a cute pet. He explains it just spawned out of nowhere. The merchant smiles, praising the feline's elegance. Checking out the hamster in its luxury bag, she's blown away by how smart these critters are. Our MC knows exactly how clever this cat really is. It shows infinite catnip over chowing down on dirt. Getting excited, Sujin points out that in a monster auction, that feline would easily sell for billions. But the moment they hear the word sale, both pets freeze up, terrified of the coming merchandise. With that off the table, she suggests setting up a dungeon on the farm to pull in more loot. Thinking it over, the kid realizes that'd be a massive boost for his future business. Plus, he mentions that selling the cat would trigger a massive diplomatic nightmare with another blah. Looking suspicious, she whispers, asking if the animal is actually some cursed human. Dropping the truth, he casually mentions the furball is a territory devourer. Hearing that, the poor hamster panics, imagining a mouth big enough to swallow a whole country. Making it worse, the MC calls him a calamity. The cat even meows, scaring its little buddy half to death. Remembering the ancient records, it finally dawns on Sujin just what tier this feline belongs to. Jumping up, she grabs the kid's shoulders with way more grip strength than he expected. Shaking the life out of him, she screams that keeping a calamity as a pet is pure madness, leaving the boy dizzy from the whiplash while she completely freaks out over the danger. Stumbling nervously, she warns him that this monster has wiped entire blocks off the mat before. Looking bored, he just says he handed over some catnip and the beast chilled out. Yelling in disbelief, she questions his sanity. But the young guy claims to have a solid math theory. He breaks it down. Conquering a territory costs 200,000 system points, but the herb he planted barely costs 10,000 points to grow, proving that efficiency is key since the plant is pure energy and super easy to digest. Is the ultimate bang for your buck, delivering way more nutrition than swallowing dirty soil. He admits he's no math genius, but the living proof is right there purring away. Full of himself, he promises it's much easier to fund the cat's addiction than actually fight it. Brushing off her fear, Sujin realizes the beast will guard the farm like its own personal litter box. Suddenly, a chill runs down the kid's spine. The cat has been quiet for way too long. Sprinting over, he screams at the beast to drop it right this second, finding the entire hamster shoved in the feline's mouth with just its tiny tail wiggling outside. Spitting out the soggy rodent, the feline plays dumb, making its owner tear his hair out. Frustrated, he realizes this furball only listens whenever it feels like it. Spinning toward the master, he demands some help from the old guy leaning against the tree, but Rohan calmly fires back that he was only going to step in if he heard a bone snap, and the kid almost loses it, furious at this deadly little game between his pets. Wiping down the poor guy, he vows to keep them separated to avoid any more tragedies. Getting serious again, Sujin shifts the topic, warning him about something huge, revealing that a scammer popped up in town swearing he's the real owner of the imperial apples. Caught off guard, the guy can't believe people are going this far just for some fruit, but she warns him, looking stressed, that this dude's lies are way worse than that. Breaking down the hustle, she explains the fake apostle is claiming full rights to the divine harvest, laughing about how they even brought ugly apples trying to fool people into buying them, explaining that they use a rare artifact to forge legit documents in the system. The vibe instantly drops. It feels like she's hiding a much darker secret behind all this. Seeing her deadly serious face, the MC tries to figure out if the issue goes beyond a simple scam. Clenching his fist, he wonders if the goddess actually went ahead and picked another spokesperson. Finding it super sketchy that this random guy showed up right when the apples started making bank. Putting the pieces together, he knows for a fact this guy is just a cheap knockoff. Blood boiling, the young MC asks for her help to track this punk down right now. Caught off guard by his rage, the merchant asks why he's in such a massive rush. Trying to explain, he gets interrupted by an angry squeak from the rodent demanding some peace. Hand on his chest, he drops the ultimate truth. He's the real apostle around here. Freezing on the spot, the girl's jaw practically hits the floor as she processes this divine bombshell. Going full tactician, the kid notes that money talks, laying out his genius plan. Taking a bite out of an apple, he tells her to slap a fat bounty on the scammer's artifact, ordering them to offer 100 imperial apples for the capture of the fraud, alive and well. And Rohan, who was pretending not to care, nearly chokes on the sheer absurdity of that reward. Eyes glowing with greed, the old man starts calculating how to hunt the target down in a flash. Cutting to a filthy alleyway in the Injustice District, a hooded guy creeps through the shadows, muttering about needing zombies to squeeze out some cash and force the MC to play ball, philosophizing that a faction member without an undead army commands zero respect. Glaring at his rotten skeletons, he knows the new gen of hunters would just one-shot them. Stopping at a busted door, he steps into an underground office with a heavy, shady vibe, instantly catching flack from a dealer who mocks him for being dead broke. Pissed off, the client tells him to show some respect for the massive bank account he's about to have, slapping a paper on the desk to cut the chatter and demand the goods he ordered, painfully handing over a rare mana crystal, since it's the very last bit of currency he owns, practically crying as he lets the gem go. Getting humiliated even more by the old geezer's teasing, the old man barks at him to shut up, smacking his hand to make him drop the stone. Begging for a friendly discount, the hooded guy gets told point blank that there's no charity here. Acting dramatic, the scammer still appeals to the old man's heart for a measly bonus. Winking, the merchant confesses the guy has a natural-born talent for begging. Then he pokes at him about the Apple legends and the so-called scammer bankrupting everyone. Owning up to it, they joke about how even the market legends got played like fools. The merchant drops a massive bombshell, and the mercenary tells him to spit it out already. A bounty of 100 imperial apples for the scammer alive, plus a massive bonus for the artifact. Hearing that, the hooded guy flashes a wicked grin. He just hit the jackpot. Yells out a quick thanks and bolts, leaving the merchant screaming at him to bring back the apples. Sprinting up the stairs, he's hyped. He finally got the ultimate VIP ticket to see our MC. Chuckling to himself, he's already cooking up an offer nobody could ever refuse. The second he hits the territory, he shouts out a deal, throws his hands up, and surrenders right on the spot. Chansu swings the door open and freezes. The whole squad is kneeling in his garden, begging for a job. Thinking it's a prank, our boy looks around for the hidden cameras. Completely lost, he glances at Master Rohan, hoping for some explanation about these weirdos. Then just shrugs it off, takes a bite of an apple and pretends this whole mess isn't happening. But their leader stands up and points to a tied-up package, demanding the bounty. Tossed on the ground like a sack of potatoes, the scammer is gagged and crying for mercy. Our MC's jaw drops. He just posted that wanted ad a second ago. Guess 100 imperial apples really do work miracles faster than the system itself. Stepping closer to the prisoner, he picks up on a very familiar vibe coming from the guy's pocket. Narrows his eyes. No doubt about it, that is the pure energy of abundance. Glancing down at the scammer, the kid is pretty disappointed by how incredibly basic the guy looks. Intrigued by this fraud, our former steps up and invites him to have a little chat. The guy flips out over being called a punk and demands to be let go, acting like he owns the place. Watching this go down, Rohan dryly points out the dude really has a talent for getting his teeth kicked in. Even with a blade at his throat, the fake keeps barking that they wouldn't dare touch him. Chansu smells Cap right away. A real apostle would have a deep connection to the earth. Activating his apostle eyes, he spots every single weak point on the guy's body. Whipping out his pruning tool, he announces he'll be checking that artifact first. Tells the loudmouth to shut it, then grabs the item straight from the mercenary's hands. It's a flower crown, and the heavy aura radiating off that thing can be felt from a mile away. That fraud was nothing but a pack mule. The raw power was pouring straight from the crown. The imposter screams in panic. Our MC can't believe this loser is dragging their faction's name through the mud. Clenching his fists, it suddenly makes sense why abundance hit rock bottom with guys like him around. Without missing a beat, he tosses the crown on his head and corners the fake senior for good. but the dude tries to play it tough, claiming he has every right to harvest whatever the earth offers. Calmly, our farmer fires back that he hasn't planted a single seed in his entire life. Chuckling, the con artist claims our MC only won because he did all the prep work with the soil. Frowning, Chansu listens to the guy brag about orchestrating every little detail of this mess. Even says he lured those monsters in as a test and expects a thank you for it. Our MC grits his teeth. He is rapidly running out of patience for this shameless BS. Remembering all the hell he went to clear those vines and avoid starving just makes his blood boil. Cutting the crap, he warns that a nobody like him couldn't have pulled this off alone. Getting right in his face, he demands to know who the real mastermind is pulling the strings. Stuttering in panic, the fake plays dumb, but our boy turns up the heat. Pacing around him, Chansu drops the hard truth. He knows the guy ran away with some serious backup. Denying it to the grave, the prisoner sobs that he was just trying to survive and not starve to death, whining about how he got pushed from block to block purely out of survival instinct. Playing the executioner, our hero raises his scythe and says the message is loud and clear. The imposter screams, almost busting his vocal cords from sheer terror. Curled up in a ball, he throws his arms up like a shield, convinced he is about to get wiped out. Feeling that cold steel on his neck, he blurts out that he's never even held a scythe before. Bawling his eyes out, he swears on his life he has zero clue about any grand master plan. It's a sharp smack to the head and finally spills the beans. Says he was promised pure gold, but got completely played in the end and never saw a single dime, proving he's just useless trash. Begging for forgiveness, he swears to vanish and never speak the name of abundance ever again. With an icy glare, Chansu warns him it is way too late for regrets, and in the blink of an eye, delivers a clean strike to the back of the guy's neck with his weapon's handle, sending the imposter face first into the dirt, knocked out cold. Staring down at him, our boy admits he really wanted to just erase this dude from existence, but getting his hands dirty would be a massive shock to the queen and the other deities. Letting out a heavy sigh, he knows he doesn't have the stomach for something that brutal. Right then, the flower crown on his head starts glowing with this sinister purple light. The system flashes. The god of injustice actually loved his hesitation and invites him over to the dark side, even offering full immunity if he becomes an apostle of injustice and permanently deletes the fake. Disgusted, he realizes this god turned into a crazy stalker who just won't leave him alone. Turns it down instantly. Taking that deal would be like signing his soul over to the devil. Out of curiosity, he asks Rohan about the rules on taking out another apostle, then quickly remembers the master has zero clue about all this divine red tape. But the hooded guy steps in and explains, aside from injustice, messing with another apostle is a massive taboo, which makes our MC realize exactly why this fake senior acted so arrogant right to his face. The system keeps spamming that bizarre invite, but Chansu tells the god of injustice to go kick rocks. Huffs in annoyance, makes it crystal clear he prefers his apples over any shady dark powers, rejects even the free trial period, while Hamdall sits back judging this whole crazy mess. Realizing this all started over the artifact, he pivots back to the mercenaries, asks them straight up if they're actually ready to put in the hard work for abundance. Almost crying tears of joy, the crew agrees instantly, and our MC hands out their very first mission, points at the knocked out traitor and orders them to keep the guy under 24-hour watch. The scene cuts over to the sanctuary of abundance, bathing in a super peaceful light. Ari, the angry little chick, wakes up groggy, trying to figure out where the heck he is. Jumps in shock right alongside Doji, who is staring in terror at the exact same spot. It's Chansu walking in with the crown, proudly announcing he brought back the original artifact. With a massive grin, he hands the item over to that giant, radish-looking creature. The shaking beast catches him completely off guard. That's when it hits him. This thing is actually the queen. Looking a bit shy, the radish queen accepts the crown, bringing her leaves close to the mystic object. Our former watches warmly. He is just glad all that sweating and grinding to get it back paid off. Tells her to keep it, since he's already pretty OP without needing any crown. The second the crown touches her, a massive explosion of green light floods the entire temple. A jewel in the center of the flower starts pulsing hard. Chansu is stunned by the raw power. Blindsided by the flash, he shields his eyes while Handel ducks behind his leg for cover. The little chick just stares in awe. That light is the ultimate sign of their salvation. The giant radish starts shrinking down, transforming right in the middle of that green flash. Seeing the miracle they've waited centuries for, the piglet even starts wagging its tail. Our MC is half blind from the light show, yelling for someone to turn off the spotlight. The glow slowly fades out, leaving a bunch of glowing petals drifting through the air. And standing right in the center is a green-haired little girl wearing the crown, asking who he is. The divine beasts are jumping for joy, crying out that their goddess finally got her true form back. She floats over to the kid. Then the whole magical vibe shatters when Chansu screams that she's just a little girl. Holding her hand, he can't believe this lowly is the actual boss of the entire place. Relieved, he celebrates. Now she can finally run the farm and let him plant his crops in peace. But the moment they touch hands, the system officially names him the head apostle of abundance. Startled by the sudden corporate promotion, he awkwardly opens the management panel, spots only his name and the traders on the roster, and instantly roasts their terrible HR crisis. Looking back at the goddess, he makes a call. He won't kill the fraud, but he's definitely stripping his name off the payroll. Finger hovering over the trader's name, our MC shoots the screen a dead serious glare. The mascots instantly panic. Ari starts chirping like crazy. Terrified, the guy's about to wipe the whole system. The system pops up saying the trader's been excommunicated. Blinking in confusion, he just mutters, "Wait, that's it?" He glances up at the floating goddess. Is being a leader just about firing people? Am I flying solo again? Turning away, he acts entirely unfazed. Zero pity for someone who bites the hand that feeds them. He drops to one knee in front of the deity, apologizing for acting on his own. Then flashes a smirk. Promises to grow their faction so huge, they'll need 1,000 leaders just to run it. The goddess smiles right back, eyes shining with a warmth that instantly melts our hero's heart. She raises her hands and 2 glowing lights appear, prompting the system to tell him to pick a brand new skill. Caught off guard, he tells her she didn't have to go through all this trouble, especially since he's already getting paid in apples. He clicks through the apostle list to check his options, ignoring Ari's desperate little screams. The tiny chick is praying hard for a communication skill, just so they can finally stop playing charades all day. But the MC locks in healthy abundance, not even paying attention to the pet's whining. The second he hits confirm, this weird trail of fire slices right through the clouds, plummeting down. Skimming the short description, the kid groans about the lazy system giving zero actual explanation. Figuring it's a passive buff, he starts theorizing. Meanwhile, Handel ignores the falling meteor and just keeps munching on his apple. Watching Rowan inhale fruit like there's no tomorrow, he wonders if the addict is going to turn into some kind of monster. Over in the corner, the other pets just deflate, losing all hope of ever being understood. Shattering the peace, the kid lets out a terrified scream the moment he looks over at the tiny goddess. He points in sheer horror as her legs turn see-through, fading away into green smoke. Panic hits hard, everyone rushes over, terrified that this whole thing was just a fleeting dream. In the blink of an eye, her form fully dissolves, leaving the giant radish right back where the girl used to be. Looking away, she shakes her leaves, dying of embarrassment because she couldn't keep her disguise going. He breathes a massive sigh of relief and flashes a gentle smile. Tells her there's no need to rush. Hand on his chest, he really hopes this new skill helps restore the goddess's strength. The scene cuts back to Earth. A box stamped with the abundance seal gets dropped off at an apartment. A woman treats the package like a rare treasure, while her son assumes it's just a new toy. She tears it open, finding an imperial apple sitting inside, along with a well-meaning note from our MC. The second she breaks the seal, the aroma floods the room, freezing them both in their tracks from the sweet scent. Mesmerized, she carries the fruit into the kitchen, her kid jumping up and down begging for a bite. She slices it super carefully, remembering it's great for their health. She hands over the first piece. The boy takes a huge bite. The crunch echoes through the room, and he instantly stops chewing. The fork just slips right out of his hand, clattering onto the floor. Face lighting up, the kid yells about how amazing it tastes. Just raw, unmatched flavor. Startled by the shouting, the mom actually gets scolded by her own son, demanding she try it right now. Figuring the kid is just hyping it up, she grabs a slice to set a good example. She brings the fruit to her lips and takes a bite. And right then, the world around her seems to freeze. Eyes going wide, she feels a massive rush of energy, immediately deciding she has to post about this online. A few days later, that same woman is typing away on her laptop, huge grin plastered on her face. On the forums, she's raving about how the price is fully worth it, praising her own husband's sudden boost in stamina. In record time, the fruit becomes a massive global craze, flooding the entire internet. It turns into a huge trend. People are posting pictures eating it just to flex their status. Soon enough, rumors spread that the apple is the ultimate secret to virility, causing it to sell out worldwide, without anyone realizing it's all just a side effect of the new skill activating during the harvest. Back in his office, the MC stares at his computer screen, hitting us with that "what have I done" look. Scratching his chin, he mutters about how people are taking this fruit in an entirely different direction. The view pans up to the bright blue sky over his territory, showing off just how much the place has thrived. Focus shifts to the temple, where the foundation is already laid down, but progress on the construction Sujin is still dragging. Lying in bed reading, he wonders how he's going to get materials without sparking a full-blown war. Frustrated, he decides to pause the construction, just to avoid drawing aggro from the neighboring factions. Lucky for him, alchemy is paying off big time, lining his pockets by selling pure sap. He checks out the map, knowing full well his little gold mine isn't exactly a secret anymore. Glancing over at the master swordsman, he prays the old guy doesn't just dip and leave him hanging. Out of nowhere, Sujin bursts in screaming his name, telling him to forget about deadlines because they've got a situation. Already exhausted, the kid asks if it's just another rumor, and she confirms it, looking genuinely shell-shocked. Joking about the apples curing baldness now, he gets cut off. She tells him to brace himself. Blushing hard, she whispers that the apple is the best medicine in the world for, well, virility. Stuttering, our MC turns bright red too. Meanwhile, the hamster is just sitting there, clueless about what's going on. The pets look super confused, wondering if this virility thing is something they can eat. Down on Earth, everyone is so stressed out that any promise of stamina is treated like a life or death matter. Desperate guys were eating some seriously dangerous stuff, just trying to get their energy back. But if the stuff didn't work, people would sue everyone involved, making the whole market super risky. Dead serious, Sujin looks him in the eye and asks if the apple actually has that kind of side effect. With Rohan loudly chewing in the background, the truth was the success stories just kept rolling in. In denial, he claims it's just an overall health boost, but she knows convincing the public otherwise is a lost cause. Getting a genius idea, he suggests leaning in. Let's focus on one specific fruit for that exact purpose. Lighting up, Sujin thinks the idea is brilliant, already picturing the marketing money raining down from the sky. Asking which fruit would be best for the job, the kid just draws a blank. Trying to think of something, he throws out random guesses. Nuts, carrots, maybe even asparagus or tomatoes. Then out of nowhere, Rohan drops the ultimate suggestion. Goji berries. The two of them just stare at the old man, jaws on the floor. Total shock. They figured the master only cared about swords and apples. Feeling their eyes on him, the old man crosses his arms, making the MC quickly hide his surprise. Repeating the tip out loud, the kid rushes to look up the properties of that tiny fruit. Deciding to take his advice, one of the Injustice goons volunteers right on the spot. As he explains the goal of the project, he gets a little suspicious of the guy's sudden eagerness to work, but the men all shout that it's a noble cause, volunteering to test everything out for the sake of the customers. Telling them to chill, he says he doesn't want to force anyone, but one of the guys steps forward anyway, firmly asking what they're going to plant. Chan-Su drops the truth. Goji berries. Silence takes over the room. The worker's eyes turn razor-sharp with unwavering determination. As the goon grabs his arm in desperation, our MC tries to shake him off, having zero clue what's happening. The guy just sobs tears of joy, hugging his savior's arm for dear life. He drops to his knees, begging to be the first test subject, leaving Chan-Su entirely speechless. Realizing there's no way to hold these guys back, he agrees, asking who else is down for it. Instantly, dozens of hands shoot up into the air, looking like an entire forest of arms. Staring at this crowd of grown men volunteering so hard, the kid is left entirely at a loss for words. He lets out a sigh, wondering if every guy in the world is suffering from the exact same problem. Cutting to a peaceful blue sky, completely ignoring all the heavy human drama playing out down below. Over at the block, the pets are snacking in peace, while our duo checks out the very first harvest. Holding up the red berries, Sujin explains that a tea made from these would be a massive hit. Flashing a clever smirk, she points out it's the perfect product for guys dealing with the worst-case scenario. Picking up one of the energy-packed berries, the kid mentions the effect kicks in within 30 minutes. Shocked, she almost falls over backwards, freaking out that they're about to monopolize the global economy. Looking a little bashful again, he mentions the specialist who gave his heart and soul to the research. He points right at the buff guy, who's currently sweating and screaming for the tests to be even more intense. RMC confesses that the old master helped out a ton too, using the blessing in a brand new way. Asking her to double-check the product's safety, his partner thumps her chest, promising she's got it covered. With fire in her eyes, she vows to turn every single one of these berries into pure gold. Watching her march off with the basket, he actually gets a little scared of the report she's gonna hand him later. Cut to the lab. The truth is, selling stamina items means tapping right into basic primal instincts. If the customer thinks too much, they'll make up excuses. The secret is getting them to act before logic kicks in. A quick, ready-to-drink potion wipes the floor with the competition. Convenience is king. Gripping the new bottle, Sujin's already scheming to jack up the price. Pure profit rolling in. She takes a test sip, and a coworker immediately slides over to ask ask for the verdict. Savoring the flavor, she mentions it has a nutty kick and goes down smooth, just like juice. Offers the bottle to the veteran to try, but the guy instantly waves it off, says he doesn't need it. She's not taking no for an answer though. Zero hesitation, she just shoves the drink right into his mouth. Wiping his mouth in shock, he admits it actually tastes good, earning a super smug wink from her. Then she immediately announces she's heading out, leaves the poor guy completely baffled by the rush. Pausing at the door, our saleswoman asks if she forgot to sign some paperwork. Playing it cool, the guy adjusts his collar and offers to escort her there. Laughing it off, she accepts, even though the dude clearly just wanted an excuse to see the farm up close. Strolling down the hallway, the boss explains that this product's actual destination is somewhere else entirely. With a swift leap, she points out they need approval from a way more specific authority. The floor actually cracks from her launch. Yeah, this is serious business. Soaring past buildings, she slices through the wind, heading straight for the nightlife district. Touches down on a skyscraper. She's fully prepped to pitch the drink that's gonna change the game. Stepping into the neon-soaked district, her expression hardens. Time to lock in a massive deal. Glaring down at the lit-up asphalt, she realizes this shady place hasn't changed one bit. Quick lore drop. This sector was built to never see the sun. Keeps the whole vibe super gloomy. The perfect backdrop for some serious angst. Just shadows hiding couples and lonely souls everywhere. But our saleswoman only sees dollar signs. Every single person down there is just a potential customer to her. Struts forward with total confidence. She knows the happier these people get, the more drinks they'll buy. Stops dead in front of a fancy building. The sign flashes the Temple of Chastity. A receptionist walks up and our executive immediately flashes her appointment card. She starts typing up the new drink, but the attendant just professionally points the way inside. Wandering through the halls, she finds this whole high-end repression vibe super weird. Right as the door, the guy tells her to hang tight. The apostle will see her in just a second. Waiting around, she really thinks about the irony here. A faction named Chastity dominating the adult entertainment industry. Flashback to the MC almost falling out of his chair when he found out monks own this whole operation. The boss confirms it, explaining they control the supply because they truly understand the power of denial. Back in the present, the apostle inspects the sample. He's honestly blown away by how pure this stuff is. Signs the certificate on the spot, but warns her not to let the production quality slip. Then he hits her with some dramatic flair. Mentions one tiny detail is missing, which really gets her attention. It's all about the ingredients. This drink needs a specific blend to actually reach its full potential. So he suggests growing some brand new components. Wants to create the ultimate custom blend just for them. Even offers to process the product in-house and slap the faction's premium seal of approval right on the bottle. Staring at the paperwork, she knows handing over the raw materials on a silver platter is a huge risk. Needs to think this through. Curiosity takes over, so she asks if they're worried about creating a massive rival by helping her out. The guy just lets out a dry chuckle. Tells her she clearly doesn't get their philosophy at all. Eyes full of pure fanaticism. He explains that Chastity is always hunting for even greater temptations. Since most normal products don't even scratch their discipline, they have to manufacture their own sins. He even praises our MC. Says a top-tier farmer like him gives them a real reason to keep fighting. Back at the farm, our boy listens to the whole pitch and decides these people have completely lost their minds. Trying to make sense of the crazy, she explains the rules. They're strictly forbidden from having any intimate moments, and by denying those urges, they generate massive power. They surround themselves with hardcore temptations just so they can say no. They control the whole industry just to have something to avoid. The MC is left completely speechless. But the executive points out a huge detail. Even if they're insane, their brand seal is by far the most valuable thing on the market. Hands the list of new ingredients over to our hero and asks for his thoughts on the whole plan. Scanning the weird names of these seeds, he realizes none of this stuff is even in his catalog. Gently petting Hamdel, the woman gives him the good news. Drink profits have already smashed their targets. Pumped about the cash. The kid says there's no rush. They can just level up the farm one step at a time. Right on cue, a super familiar noise echoes from under the table. It's the little piggy, starving and desperate for a taste. Plus, the baby chick is right beside him, looking super curious. Laughing at their endless gluttony, the MC glances over at his buff worker. He fully trusts the guy's research skills. But that peaceful vibe doesn't last long. A massive problem from the Chastity faction decides to crash the party. None other than Park Hang-yeol, the great mage himself, comes knocking right on our hero's front door. staring at the old man. The kid just can't believe it. This legendary guy is actually losing his manhood from training too hard. The old man confirms it, looking completely crushed. He knows that without the urge, there's zero merit in denying anything. Feeling bad for the guy, the farmer really wonders how he's supposed to save a 40-year-old mage's libido. Pictures the dude shriveling up and getting kicked out of his own faction. He crosses his fingers and hopes the drink does the trick. Then the mage starts a story time. Back in the day, the faction was pure and built on actual virtues. They lived up in the mountains, completely isolated from worldly desires, just searching for perfect peace. But the real world is brutal. Being a peaceful faction just meant they were getting slaughtered left and right. If they wanted to protect the temple, they desperately needed some insane combat power. And that's exactly when the old guy had his big awakening, a total mix of deep wisdom and pure madness. He realized the ultimate cheat code: have the entire world at your feet but refuse to touch a single thing. Then he drops a massive bombshell. In just 1 year, he single-handedly generated 50% of the faction's power points. Completely shocked, our hero covers the hamster's little ears. Way too much adult talk going on right now. The mage admits the beginning was a total mess. Everyone wanted his head on a silver platter. But the second the big bosses saw those crazy profit margins, yeah, they changed their minds instantly. Finding that kind of dependency super weird, the kid realizes they completely lost the plot. Trying to defend himself, Park argues that to get OP, you gotta resist some seriously heavy desires. The catch, he grinded way too hard. Now he's basically turned into a massive emotional desert. No desires means no powers, and now he's about to lose his rank just for being way too pure. Desperate, he grabs the MC's hand, begs him, saying those little berries are his only salvation. Our hero starts panicking. He has zero clue how to fix 30 years of hardcore emotional damage. Telling him to chill, the old guy says he can still hold out a little longer before completely crashing. But they gotta focus on that formula. He extends his hand, ready to lock the steel in right now. Promises to invest heavily. The legendary mage is out here talking like a desperate angel investor trying to save his own life. Then he flashes an upfront payment so massive the kid almost falls flat on his back. Staring in awe, the MC realizes this old man is actually a dangerous dude. But hey, money talks. He shakes the guy's hand and promises to build a full-blown temptation factory. Meanwhile, over at the Temple of Chastity, the vibe is super tense. Members are fiercely debating sales numbers. One young guy is hyped about his streak of not giving in. Gets a proud pat on the back from a veteran in the hallway. Nearby, a hooded guy eavesdrops on two girls. They're actually debating if curvy bottles give them more magical power. He instantly loses his mind. Starts yelling that the faction is getting destroyed by all this cheap vulgarity. The scene quickly shifts to a pitch-black room. Stinks like mold and dark secrets. A bunch of hooded dudes are gathered around a table. They're plotting a massive coup right under everyone's noses. The leader kicks off the meeting, claims their sacred purity is in serious danger. One member cuts in, demanding to know how they're supposed to kick out the mage. The guy just brings in way too much profit. Another zealot yells out that they only care about true purity. They want to drag the faction right back to its hardcore roots. Slamming his fist down, the boss makes their mission crystal clear. They're putting an end to this whole circus. Analyzing the intel, they start questioning the real source of their enemy's newfound power. Reading up on the abundance tea, they realize this drink has become a massive trend. If the old man levels up even more, their faction is never going to see peace again. The report lays it all out. Our favorite farmer is completely wrecking their ecosystem with these crazy sales. Digging into the MC's security, the boss discovers the kid has some seriously heavyweight connections backing him. Brainstorming their next move, they quickly realize a frontal assault is just going to cause a massive headache. Plus, invading his sector would be pure suicide. The radar system would kick them out in the blink of an eye. Chuckling evilly in the shadows, the villain drops the master plan. If they can't go in, they'll just force the hero to step out. So their endgame is teaming up with the alchemy faction to bait the kid and trap him all alone. Meanwhile, back at the abundance block, Chansu suddenly feels a bone-chilling shiver run down his spine. He glances around, realizing somebody is definitely talking trash about him behind his back. Right then, Yunyak walks up looking dead serious, asking the master to follow him. Taking him up on the offer, the kid tails the necromancer deep into the woods. They stop right in front of this massive, stitched-up meat golem radiating raw power. floor. Just staring at it, Yenhyuk starts shaking in pure shock. Running over in tears, he hugs the creature's massive legs, screaming out for his boy, Hercules. Bawling his eyes out with gratitude, he asks if the MC actually saved the big guy. Feeling a bit awkward, our boy admits he just stored it away, thinking it was only good for fertilizer. But on second thought, he plays the nice guy card to score some easy points with his new ally. There's just one problem. The beast is missing its head, but its dad swears that's just a minor cosmetic issue, cheering about how productivity is about to skyrocket 17 times over with this brood on the field. Blown away by the exact math, Chansu agrees the giant will be a massive help with the harvest. Then the necromancer casually drops that the other skeletons are just untalented interns. Laughing it off, the MC tells him to chill out, since anyone can level up with enough apples. Shooting back an ice-cold glare, Yunhyuk warns that around here, anyone who doesn't produce turns into compost. Watching this unfold, the kid realizes the guy acts tough but secretly cares for his undead crew. And just as he tries to break the ice, a blood-curdling scream echoes through the forest out of nowhere. Jumping out of his skin, he nearly drops his hamster, scrambling to figure out what's going on. Suddenly, Master Park comes sprinting like a maniac chasing after the lust specialist. Grabbing the guy by the collar, the mage insists he's the chosen one of chastity. But the man bursts into tears, screaming that he's getting married, leaving Chansu speechless at the irony. Stepping into the mess, the kid tells the mage to back off and stop forcing his religion on the poor guy. The old man instantly pivots to recruiting the MC, only to get slapped with a hard no on the spot. Crying over the wasted potential, the apostle actually scares the pets away because he's acting so creepy. Changing the subject, the kid asks him to test out the brand new goji berry formula. Gulping down the first sample, the mage checks the stats and says it hits 33 points. But the second batch drops to 32, frustrating the MC who was aiming for at least 90. The mage tries to cheer him up, but Chansu is pissed because he can never break past the 40-point mark. That's when the old man explains how your mental state directly buffs or nerfs the blessing's outcome. Confused, the kid questions the logic, and the mage tells him he just needs to feel more raw desire. Leaning into whisper, he suggests the MC use some educational content to fuel his imagination. Picturing some dirty stuff, the kid actually gets a nosebleed, quickly covering his hamster's pure little ears. The old geezer tries to hand over a super suspicious red book, earning himself a solid smack to the hand. Freaking out, the MC thinks the guy has finally lost his mind, while the mage sadly puts the smut away. Running off without looking back, he escapes with his pet, complaining about losing his innocence. Right in the middle of his getaway, Sujin pops up out of nowhere, completely throwing him off. All hyped up, she says she's got news, but jumps back a bit seeing the state the kid is in. Wiping his face, he changes the subject and tells her to just spill the tea already. Flashing a smile, she reveals that the alchemy faction is inviting him on a dungeon raid. Freezing in his tracks, he can barely wrap his head around this absolute madness. Picturing himself fighting a full-blown dragon with nothing but a hoe, he starts losing his mind. He tries to weasel his way out, explaining he only knows how to prune plants and slice regular necks. After all, if the monster is way too tanky, his attacks wouldn't even tickle it. But Sujin reminds him that after dropping so many god-tier products, he is way more than just a farmer now. She clarifies it's just a gathering mission, while the old man quietly sneaks away in the background. Figuring they need him for his preservation skills, the MC finally starts to put the pieces together, except the target is a water spirit, a beast that regenerates endlessly unless it takes a clean, fatal strike. Plus, if it heals too much, it loses its purity. Even with that, Chancellor doesn't see why he's the guy for the job. Since they need some massive burst damage, the kid tells her to just hit up the swordsman instead. Grumbling to himself, he swears this is a job tailored for a literal legend like Grandpa. Then it clicks. They only invited the MC so the swordsman would tag along as a package deal. Rejecting the offer right there, he claims he can't just leave his precious crops unattended. But Sujin plays her trump card, revealing the payout is insanely huge. First up, a luxury weapon. He scoffs at that, firing back that he doesn't need a fancy sword. But the second reward is a living water spirit. His eyes practically light up like Christmas trees. In pure shock, he grabs the merchant girl, unable to believe this insane proposal. Drooling just thinking about it, he knows this means infinite automatic irrigation for his fields. Shaking with excitement, he even asks if he couldn't just snag one off the black market. She shuts that down instantly, warning him that refusing would be shooting himself in the foot since the alchemy guys are fuming. Let's face it, the MC's hangover tea completely shattered their monopoly on the cure. So this was basically an ultimatum wearing the mask of a friendly invite. Letting out a heavy sigh, the kid is still paranoid about leaving his beloved farming block defenseless. So Sujin suggests he just hurry up and finish the temple, since it generates a massive protective barrier. Caught off guard by that detail, he complains that nobody bothered to tell him this earlier. Giving him a friendly pat on the back, the girl points out just how vital he is to the whole system. After a few grueling days of hard labor, the Grand Temple of Abundance is finally built. Inside, the radish-shaped goddess sighs in exhaustion after dealing with all the recent chaos. Going over everything, she thinks back on the territory expansions and that terrifying master swordsman, not to mention the whole drama with the traitorous apostle getting violently fired from his job. And to make matters worse, the god of injustice would not stop spamming her inbox and grinding her gears. Even so, she feels a wave of relief seeing the kid finally taking a break from his usual crazy stunts. But the divine beasts just exchange looks, knowing the peace and quiet never lasts long around here. The goddess even daydreams about the day he finally unlocks the communication skill. Right on cue, the temple alarms blare out, triggering a maximum defense skill out of nowhere. A giant blue barrier domes the entire place, pulsing with some seriously intense energy. Even Grandpa tests the shield by giving it a solid whack, while the kid stares in awe at how tough it is. Panicking, the goddess clutches her little chick, swearing this madman is about to start another war. Outside, he heads out for his mission, feeling that same weird chill like somebody is cursing his name. Stopping in his tracks, he realizes he completely forgot to tell his deity about this little road trip. Since the portal is already fired up, he just shrugs it off and rushes ahead with his squad. Traveling at warp speed, they roll up right in front of the massive alchemy faction headquarters. The building is so sleek and modern it looks like a futuristic lab made entirely of glass. Touching down, the MC thanks the swordsman for giving them a massive speed boost on the way over. Breathing easy, he also celebrates having a return portal because fast travel prices are an absolute scam. Thinking about it, he knows that without an endless supply of points, you can barely step foot outside your own yard. Sujin says her goodbyes at the entrance, begging him, for the love of God, not to blow anything up. Walking into the fancy lobby, the duo immediately notices all the staff rushing around like crazy. Pretty soon, a receptionist walks up and welcomes the kid with this super stiff, formal greeting. Handing over a heavy briefcase, she even asks if this bizarre weapon is really what he wanted. Popping it open with a smirk, he guarantees this thing is worth way more than any legendary sword. Tossing the heavy case over to Grandpa, he bribes the old man with 2 crisp, cold apples to carry it. The lady then explains their next step is blessing the taming potion for the hunt, but she warns him that using the local blessing means he'd be locked into buying their beast feet forever. Weighing his options, the MC asks about the actual success rate of their stuff. When she admits she has no idea, he just flashes a confident smile and decides to use his own skill instead. The receptionist just nods along, pointing them straight down the hallway that leads to the dungeon. Right in front of them, a deep blue portal starts warping the air with heavy, surging energy. Fixing their stances, the kid and the old man step through the rift, completely locked in and ready for a brawl. Boom, we cut straight to a damp, stone corridor, lit up by row after row of magical torches. Waiting right there is this scientist, telling the guys they're all set to start harvesting. Gripping the potion flask tight, our boy tells her to just cut to the chase. So she explains that the low-tier spirits hang out here, while the boss is locked away in its own private chamber, giving him a heads up that the lesser drops go to her as a fee, and he can summon the big guy whenever he's ready. But our MC asks for a quick sec to bless the potion first, leaving her scratching her head. Eyes closed, he channels the blessing of abundance, sparking this crazy bright green light. Realizing the flask is draining a ton of points, he figures he might as well push it to the absolute limit, making the liquid boil and glow so hard it lights up the entire dungeon hallway. Shaking from all that raw power, he asks if this is normal. The woman, completely speechless. He ignores the obvious danger though, deciding to max it out and tame this thing like a true badass. Watching the counter hit 300,000 points, the scientist starts full-on panicking. Then he screams out 500,000, setting off a green flashbang that blinds everyone in the room. Once the light fades, the flask has this otherworldly glow to it, leaving her in absolute shock. Hyped out of her mind, she runs off to grab a test spirit while our guy just laughs it off. Seconds later, she comes rushing back, yelling at him to brace himself because the target is incoming. The little water critter shoots in like a torpedo, and the scientist screams at him to throw the potion. A bit spooked, the MC plants his feet, winding up his arm like a major league pitcher. He chucks it with everything he's got, smashing the glass and drenching the beast in bright green goop. Backing up closer to Rohan, he's not sure if he just pulled off a genius move or made a massive mistake. gets his answer pretty quick. The spirit freezes midair, trembling as it drips with the strange liquid. Looking incredibly sick, its body starts melting and bubbling like spoiled jello. Seeing the poor thing suffer like that, the kid rubs the back of his neck, feeling super guilty. But right as he's feeling bad about it, this weird bubbling sound echoes through the hall, freezing him in his tracks. Turning around, he's faced with a massive wall of curious water spirits just staring at him. The researcher almost drops her glasses, having zero clue how the heck they all got lured over. Then she realizes the glowing green spirit is the culprit, thinking the whole thing is just peak science. Panicking at the living flood heading their way, our guy asks if she's really gonna write a thesis paper right now, pointing frantically at the dead center of this crazy chaotic mess, where that green spirit started acting like a black hole, just sucking up all the others. Annoyed, he yells at the doctor to drop her tablet and actually do something useful, but she stays glued to the screen, casually asking if he's on steroids. With a vein popping on his forehead, he snaps back that he only eats apples and is just a simple farmer. Rohan sizes up the scene, pointing out that 500,000 points worth of power just turned into an all-you-can-eat buffet, until the creature swallows every last common spirit, leaving the hallway dead quiet again. That peace does not last long though. The woman turns pale, dropping all her gear. Panicking, she realizes that massive 500,000 point bait just lured out the boss. Right then, the MC stares down the dark corridor, watching a colossal shadow rise up. A high-grade spirit. A massive wave of living water so huge it made the ceiling look low, showing zero mercy. The monster unleashes a crushing tidal wave sweeping right through the hall, holding on to Rohan for dear life. The kid screams, begging the Thame to just talk it out. Moving scary fast, the boss swallows the tiny green spirit whole, making its entire body boil and morph into this sickly, toxic green color, expanding so much that the stone walls of the dungeon immediately start cracking under the pressure. Soaked on the floor, the woman goes into full shock, thinking the whole system is about to collapse, letting out a tortured roar. The beast thrashes around in unbearable pain, face palming hard. The MC mutters that farmers have zero business stepping into a dungeon, grumbling to himself, feeling pretty guilty as he watches the creature crying endless waterfalls. Rohan claims it's game over, but the kid refuses to back down, walking right up to the weeping boss. Using a soft voice, he apologizes for feeding it such a heavy, chaotic meal, touching that vibrating wall of water, asking gently if it hurts a lot. Hearing its sad cries, the MC encourages the monster to just let it all out. Closing his eyes, he tries to fix the massive mess his energy created, activating the blessing of abundance, but this time, keeping it super smooth and calming. Seconds later, the boss spirit glows with this incredibly pure, blinding white light, purging all the excess energy, shrinking down until it's just a tiny droplet splashing in a basin. Wiping his wet face, he breathes a huge sigh of relief seeing the little guy stable again, thinking it's actually kind of cute, right up until he takes a water jet to the eye and reconsiders, with the tiny spirit glaring back at him, clearly still pissed about that terrible meal. But the evolution isn't over yet. The creature starts glowing again, completely shifting its shape. When the light finally fades, he sees the monster has turned into a solid item, almost like a marble. Picking herself up, the scientist points out that technically he just tamed a high-tier spirit. Giving him the bad news though, he officially failed the quest, since the goal was to collect pure boss water. He instantly breaks into a cold sweat over the penalty fees, but the woman sighs, deciding to bail him out, tossing him a lifeline, telling him to blame their unstable potion if anyone complains, and claiming those nasty puddles on the floor were the only things left to collect. Slipping away quietly, she still yells back, begging for a 5-star rating on her final review. Left alone, he stares at the item in his hand, remembering her warning that its appearance would change. That is, until some annoying suit storms in, screaming his lungs out, face completely red with rage, pointing a finger right at the MC, demanding an outrageous penalty fee for the failed mission. The kid tries using the unstable potion excuse, but the guy brushes it off, pinning the blame entirely on him. Chilling quietly in the corner, Rohan cracks one eye open, leaking some seriously heavy aura. And the moment that bureaucrat orders everything confiscated, the sharp ring of a drawn blade echoes through the room. Rohan grips his hilt tight, shooting the guy a look so deadly it could freeze time. Moving like a blur, he flings his sword, sending it slicing right past the guy's ear, pinning into the wall behind him, leaving the suit drenched in cold sweat, completely paralyzed with fear. Calm and collected, the swordsman just mentions that all this yelling was giving him a headache. Then a smooth voice echoes from the portal, and the great alchemist, Hong Yun-su, steps right in. Rohan ignores the alchemy boss, treating the guy like a total nobody. Yun-su glares at the suit, asking what the hell he was even doing in this sector, calling him out right to his face, exposing how jealous he was of our MC's booming tea sales. threatening to strip his apostle status that very day for pulling such dirty tricks. Sweating buckets now, the bureaucrat stammers out an excuse, but Yoon-soo just tells him to get lost. The guy scrambles away, tripping over his own feet while the scientist still demands her 5 stars. Apologizing for the rude interruption, Yoon-soo introduces himself with perfect manners, adjusting his glasses, inviting the MC to have a little chat about business. He calms the kid down, admitting that even though the whole subjugation was a disaster, he points out that the scattered water actually transformed into something incredibly rare and valuable, because that fluid could now be used to lure out bosses, completely changing the game for alchemy. Flashing his sharp businessman smile, offering to buy up every last drop of that monster puke. Our boy is stunned. He can barely believe he's getting paid for something so gross. Throw in the bonus of marking a quest as a success, and the MC agrees without a second thought, praising his smart choice. Yusu adds that raw cash almost feels too cheap for a find like this, proposing a trade for some high-tier medicine crafting gear instead, which leaves the kid pretty confused, explaining that the machine is fully automated, guaranteed to send his sales numbers through the roof. Thinking it over, he asks if producing meds is actually safe without causing even more drama. Laughing honestly, he makes it clear that the alchemy faction isn't scared of one talented farmer, adding that good people are always welcome, especially when building a solid alliance for the future. A few minutes later, stepping outside headquarters, the whole squad finally says their goodbyes, and Yoon-soo curiously asks if he's Rohan's student, noticing how perfectly in sync those two were back there. Trying to change the subject to avoid bruising any egos, the kid claims they just share the same dorm block. Flashing back to that near miss with the sword. The old swordsman just shrugs it off though. Laughing, Yoon-soo admits she faked the whole tense vibe on purpose, while Rohan completely ignores her. Right then, the MC notices the old man is already sipping on apple juice, thinking the guy has a serious obsession, practically begging for a potion instead, since this dude scarfs down apples 24/7, venting about how he's tried cooking every dish under the sun, yet Rohan only praises his baked apples. Screaming for some actual protein, Yoon-soo tells him to give it up. The old swordsman is just too stubborn to change, chilling the mood. A sleek black sedan pulls up, and the driver invites them to hop in, catching our boy completely off guard. He doesn't get it since they were supposed to head back through a portal, so the car speeds off, city lights blurring past a window as they drive on. Sitting in dead silence, he stares at his own reflection, wondering where the heck they're going. Definitely wasn't expecting the Chastity faction's top brass to send an official ride just to pick him up. Trying to rationalize things, he figures it's probably just some red tape regarding Apostle Park's medicine, but something really bugs him. According to his watch, it should still be daytime, so why is it pitch black outside? Glaring at the purple neon glow, he realizes this is that eternal twilight of desire Sujin warned him about, until the car parks right in front of a massive building, the true stronghold of the Chastity faction. Stepping out of the ride, his jaw hits the floor the second he recognizes the temple. Staring up at the blinding white architecture, the crew braces themselves to climb the giant staircase. Taking the steps one by one, he feels how heavy the air is. Such a bizarre contrast for a supposedly pure sanctuary. Led inside by their guide, the MC shoots a quick warning glance at the old swordsman. Walking down this super clean minimalist hallway bathed in a harsh white light, stopping at a set of double doors, the guide announces that the elders are ready for them. Walking right in, they're greeted by 3 imposing figures perched on these high-backed chairs. Taking the lead, some dude with a mustache apologizes for dragging them in on such short notice, while another apostle politely asks if their trip over was comfortable. Keeping his guard way up, our guy takes a seat when the head elder points to the chairs. They get served tea in fancy porcelain cups, but the thick tension completely ruins the flavor. Cupping his drink, the elder questions him on Apostle Park's current condition, playing it straight to avoid any traps. The kid admits the situation is pretty tricky. At that, an old lady demands the supplement, prompting him to explain that progress has been slow. Getting pressured for an exact success rate, Rohan steps up, shutting the conversation down. Slamming his cup on the table, one of the elders drops a flat "no," scaring the crap out of our MC. Then he says something downright unbelievable. He tells the kid to stop trying so hard. Thinking he heard that wrong, the elder clues it up. They really don't want the medicine finished. Flashing this cynical smirk, they tell him to stall, make up some bogus excuses about a bad harvest, making him even more confused, since Park is the guy raking in half the faction's points. The suit spells it out for him. Laying low and siding with them would be a lot better for his own health. Sweetening the pot, they guarantee double the perks, as long as he leaves the old man hanging. This changes everything. The faction is split, and he just landed straight into a viper's nest. Forcing a tight smile, he turns them down, refusing to trust a bunch of backstabbers. Standing up abruptly, he signals Rohan, ready to ditch this corrupt place right now. Losing his cool, the suit screams at him, asking if he's blind to the reality right outside their doors. Pointing at the windows, he rants about the endless darkness of lust and sin out there, having a full-blown meltdown over how much every apostle suffers because of it. Frowning, our guy asks if that isn't exactly what their own deity wants. Furious, the leader snaps back, claiming a simple dirt farmer could never grasp their theology. Then he resorts to threats, promising to revoke the Goji T certification and completely ruin the kid. Unbelievable. These top-tier guys are using cheap blackmail like spoiled toddlers. Reading their faces, he spots the desperation, knowing there's definitely a bigger play happening in the shadows. Calling them out for sinking so low, our boy tells Rohan they're done here. Hand on his hilt, Grandpa asks if they're fighting their way out, but the young MC just wants to walk away. Walking out while the elder continues to yell, he just tosses back that he's got better things to do. Once the door clicks shut, the vibe instantly shifts. One elder asks if the kid saw right through their little act. Adjusting his suit, the guy reveals it was all a perfect setup, playing the role of incompetent bad guys to a T. Sighing, the old woman admits he's way sharper than he looks, demanding to know the next move. Wearing a dark expression, the leader decides it's time to trigger Plan 4. Nobody argues. They just need to hit their goal, no matter what it takes. Deciding to keep the Apostle of Abundance so bogged down with work that he completely loses focus. Listening in deadpan, the suit is already mapping out the next phase, delivering the checkmate. They're gonna turn the kid into a global hero, leaving him with zero free time. Cutting back to the farm, late afternoon sunlight washes over our protagonist's land. Just then, a follower asks if it's cool to drop a little dungeon critter on the ground. He gently sets the tiny plant monster right there on the courtyard dirt. It lets out a cute squeak, sprinting frantically toward the gate where our MC just showed up. The follower is mind blown, watching this little sprout track the guy down like a loyal puppy. Without warning, it pulls off a crazy flip and launches at him like a heat-seeking missile. Catching the little guy midair, he breathes a huge sigh of relief, seeing the whole gang waiting for him, giving them all a massive hug. Realizing his pets missed him like crazy, plopping down on the ground, he just knows the goddess of abundance is probably cursing him out right now. That's when Apostle Park walks up, cracking up at the sight of the kid buried under a pile of adorable plants. Climbing out of the mess, he thanks Master Park for keeping the place safe while he was gone. Suddenly, the whole vibe shifts. The kid grabs his master, pulling him aside for a dead serious talk. Cutting right to the chase, he spills the elder's master plan, but Park flat out denies backstabbing anyone. Getting real with him, he drops a bombshell. They actually ordered him to sabotage the medicine, leaving the old man completely stunned. Hanging his head, Park apologizes a million times over for dragging him into this messy political warfare. Ready to march right over and throw hands, the old guy gets held back. The kid warns him it's an obvious trap, laying out the scheme to delay the cure just to blackmail the Goji Berry Tea Company. Letting out a heavy sigh, the apostle puts the pieces together. Those cowards were always terrified of losing their precious status. Smelling a rat, sure, but Park guarantees they're nothing more than a bunch of spineless office drones, completely obsessed with playing it safe, calculating every single move so they never get their own hands dirty, even suggesting they might just call and apologize, which leaves our hero shaking his head in disbelief. Breaking the silence, Rohan bows he's never stepping foot in there again, not even for an endless supply of orchards. And with all the odds stacked against them, Park wonders what the farmer's next move could possibly be. Flashing a wicked villain smile, he swears he'll finish that vitality potion in record time, leaving the old man speechless, just staring at a kid with pure fire in his eyes. Except, out of nowhere, a blinding blue light bursts from his pocket, lighting up the entire area. Spooking the apostle, he frantically yanks the item out, swearing it has nothing to do with chastity. Pulling out the glowing sphere, the kid realizes the water spirit marble is waking up, making the little creatures go crazy, while Ari the chick actually asks if it's edible. Right then, the orb floats into the air and unleashes a massive flash, blinding everyone around it. Taking a quick step back, Rohan goes on high alert, his hand instantly flying to a sword hilt, while Park just watches with his jaw on the floor, feeling the unreal energy pouring out of that tiny rock. A shockwave knocks the MC back. He yells in excitement as the light starts taking shape, but when the glare fades, his hopes for some badass ice knight go right down the drain. because instead, a transparent blue blob of jelly flops right onto the dirt. Staring at a squishy slime, the kid loses his mind. He fought a high-tier spirit just to get this, all under a beautiful late-afternoon sky, giving the farm a strangely magical vibe. The little blue guy wiggles a bit, blinking its tiny black eyes before letting out an adorable squeak, jumping without any warning, launching like a spring right into the protagonist's face, laughing and crying for help. They promised him a god-tier summon and delivered a gummy bear. Staring in disbelief, the kid asks if this is normal, but the apostle swears it's a freak mutation. Squatting down real slow, our hero tries to win over the tiny creature without spooking it. Giving a little wave, the slime shocks everyone by growing a tiny hand to touch him back. Blown away, the MC yells out that the little guy actually has hands and feels incredibly soft. Hanging out in a crouch, he wonders if the little blob really understands a word he's saying. Then, the jelly does a little hop in a circle, leaves him wondering if that was a yes or just some random gas bubble. Park claps his hands, congratulating the natural-born tamer. Even the plants are cheering right along. Rolling up for the initiation, the little pig tells the rookie to go pay his respects to the goddess. Flashing a huge smile, our hero officially introduces the newest member of the family. Making a formal intro, he calls the rookie their brand new irrigation specialist. But seeing as the pet doesn't have a name yet, he admits they can't just keep calling him Jelly. So the kid rubs his chin, racking his brain for the perfect fit. Right then Rohan strolls up munching on an apple, suggests a name that's way too literal and kind of weird. Laughing awkwardly, the MC shuts it down. Park tells the old man to just stick to swinging a sword. Suddenly, the kid gets a spark of genius, choosing the name Bomb for the little slime. He eagerly explains how it reminds him of spring and garden sprinklers. A perfect match. He welcomes the new mascot to the crew while the swordsman just awkwardly looks away. Holding the blob up to eye level, he wants to see exactly what this little guy can do, but his stomach gives a loud growl. Instantly, all the other pets chime in with their own hungry noises. Chuckling at the timing, Master Park admits it's way past dinner time for him too. Flashing a massive grin, the kid takes over the kitchen, promising a feast they won't forget. He fires up his skill, and blue flames burst from his hands to get the cooking started. Moving fast, he kneads the dough with dead-on precision, tosses the bread right into the oven. He sets up the portable stove out in the courtyard. The giant roasting pan is already browning up the ingredients. Curious, Park asks what's on the menu, and our hero just winks, calling it a secret of abundance. Yelling for the old man to lend a hand, the MC tosses an apple high into the air right at him. Even while half distracted, Rohan reacts in a flash the second he spots the fruit. He catches the apple with one hand and grabs the raw dough with the other, already dropping into a combat stance. In a split second, both of the master's swords leave their sheaths with a blinding silver flash, slicing everything midair. The dough turns into perfect strips of noodles dropping straight into the basket. Sheathing his blades, the old man warns that next time, his fee is going up to 2 apples. Jaws hit the floor. The rest of the crew can't believe they just watched a legendary master turn into a human food processor. Park is practically speechless at the sight. Meanwhile, the kid just casually stirs the pot. Wiping his hands on his apron, the farmer announces that dinner is finally served. With the table packed full of mouthwatering dishes, he tells the crew to dig in. One bite in, and Park's eyes practically bulge out of his head, blown away by the flavor. Devouring everything in sight, the apostle instantly regrets not moving in way sooner. Feeling satisfied, the MC realizes that seeing everyone so happy brings a kind of peace no dungeon raid ever could. Glancing over at Rohan in his corner, he sees the old guy quietly destroying a slice of apple pie. Turning to the blue slime, the kid releases a soft green aura to feed him some energy. Instead of soaking up the blessing and chilling out, the tiny jelly starts vibrating. Getting worried, the hero wonders if that just wasn't enough to fill the little guy up. Wiggling its body, the creature points right at the table, demanding some real food. Surprised by the attitude, he grabs a juicy imperial apple and offers it to the slime. Moving fast, Bomb wraps his stretchy body around the whole fruit, absorbing it right into his core. Right away, his blue color shifts with some rosy pink tones popping little bubbles of pure joy. Glowing bright, the tiny creature lets out the cutest little crystal bell chime, floating up out of nowhere and shooting off sparks like mini fireworks. The pet gets a flashy cosmetic upgrade. Smiling at his new buddy, the MC tells him he's got free reign over the pantry. Celebrating by stretching into a star shape, the little guy zips around in a circle, trailing the magical sparkles everywhere. The next day, the scene cuts to the edge of the forest, with the sun beating down hard. Strolling along, Chansu feels the ground acting weird, notices it's completely smooth. Looking ahead, he spots a perfectly leveled dirt path, with some guy waving right at him. is the proud prisoner, bragging that they built this express route just to help out with transport. Pointing at his crew, he mentions they already smashed all their daily quotas way ahead of schedule. Thinking the guy is way too hyped for a captive, the hero definitely isn't complaining about the free labor. Catching sight of the floating slime, the guy asks who that is, and the kid introduces his new buddy. Shocked that he actually tamed a spirit, the other workers shower the slime with compliments, calling him adorable. Regaining his composure, the prisoner boss barks at everyone to get back to the grind. But Chansu calms the crew down, letting them take a breather to see what the rookie can do. He turns to the jelly, asking him to show off his full power right then and there. Bubbling up, Bomb shoots out this green liquid that hydrates and spreads all over the soil, forming a gorgeous little wave complete with a rainbow. The workers start hyping him up like he's some kind of artist. The whole crowd claps and whistles, while the little slime just eats up the attention. But then, the pet locks onto the forest again, expanding a seriously heavy aura. It launches a massive wall of water. The MC jumps back, realizing it's an actual tidal wave. Flailing his arms in a panic, he tries to call it off, but the tsunami is already unleashed. Chilling on a nearby rock, the little black cat opens one eye just to see a wall of water barreling toward him. Not even bothering to run, the feline stands up. Its eyes flash with terrifying fury. Popping pitch black, razor-sharp claws from its paws, it gets ready to counter. Moving like a blur, the beast slices the giant wave clean in half with one flawless swipe. Frozen in shock, the MC watches the kitten leap right over them like a wisp of smoke. Landing right in front of the slime, the poor jelly starts quivering like pudding, terrified of the cat. Shrinking down into a tiny ball, Bomb feels like he's about to be turned into fresh sashimi. Rushing in and scooping up the shaking blob, the kid warns him to never mess with that feline again. Watching the kitten casually lick its paw, those yellow eyes look like they belong to a cold-blooded killer. Ordering everyone back to their stations, he bolts out of there, holding both pets in his arms. A little while later, the leaves of some premium catnip start glowing nearby on the farm. Sprawled out in the leaves and purring with joy, the cat's killer instinct is officially shut down. Dropping to the dirt and wiping his sweat, he thanks his lucky stars for calming the beast down in time. Asking for a quick drink of water, the slime generates a perfect, crystal-clear sphere for the MC. Out of nowhere, the air vibrates. Glitchy blue screens pop up, flashing like crazy. Thinking it's the blue screen of death, it tries touching the warning, but it vanishes instantly. Confused by the weird bug, he jumps out of his skin when the cat suddenly pounces on his arm. Caught off guard by the ambush, the hero asks if the bribe wore off already. It sinks its teeth into the kid's hand. He screams in pain, begging the fuzzball to let go. Refusing to let go, the feline lets out a weird meow and just keeps biting down hard. Right then, the screen flashes red, warning him that he just lost ownership of one of his grids. Staring in shock at the alert, the notifications keep rolling in, sealing away 3 more of his plots. Taking a massive hit and losing huge chunks of land, he watches his entire empire shrink in seconds. Grabbing the kitten by the scruff, he shakes with anger, demanding to know if the beast just betrayed him. Yawning without a care in the world, the creature wanders back to the bushes, curls up in the leaves for a nap. Desperate, the MC promises endless premium catnip if the guy just protects his central grid. Knowing cats are fiercely territorial, the hero realizes if he doesn't do something, he's gonna lose the whole farm. Crying tears of pure frustration, he regrets nursing the beast just to lose everything like this. While the MC yells his lungs out, the cat just stares back, clearly thinking its owner is being overly dramatic. Switching gears in a heartbeat, the kitten starts purring, begging for head scratches like nothing even happened. Even while seething with rage, the MC just can't resist when the feline rubs up against his legs. As the cat does an adorable little stretch, the kid backs away, genuinely terrified by its crazy mood swings. Trying to calm down and avoid a heart attack, he takes a deep breath, watching the beast chill out and lick its paw. Looking closer, it finally hits the MC. That cat bite wasn't a betrayal at all. It was a warning. He taps the glowing screen, realizing the system is back online. But the cost? Massive chunks of his land are just gone. Right then, Master Park's voice echoes out. The guy comes sprinting over looking like he just saw a ghost. Scanning the area for Rohan, the old man catches the kid's crushed expression. The MC just gives a defeated sigh. So, our hero breaks the bad news, explaining the complete disaster that just hit his grids. Miles away in one of those sealed blocks, a tiny gray creature watches a crew of skeletons working. chucking a rotten piece of fruit right at a zombie. The little monster ducks into hiding before the undead even spots him. Cutting back to the MC, Park yells out in panic, recognizing the threat immediately as grid parasites. Sweating bullets, he explains that these things are a full-blown calamity. Just like that black cat, annoyed, the mage asks if the kid lives under a rock, but our hero just shrugs, reminding him he's just a farmer. That's when the old man breaks it down. It's a chain infection that jumps from one plot of land straight to the next, spreading like a digital virus across the entire domain if he tries to buy up any more property, trapping him in an endless loop where they drain the energy out of everything until nothing is left. And the worst part, they're completely invisible to the system. By the time an error pops up, it's already game over. Going pale, Chansu finally gets it. He was seconds away from losing everything he worked so hard to build. Staring down at his bitten hand, he asks what actually happens once the bugs finish the job. Sighing heavily, Park says it's the end of the line. The grid gets stripped clean and turns into a total wasteland. Plus, if the owner steps on infected soil, they catch the virus themselves. Normal people are immune though. Hands shaking, the MC realizes he lost 10 plots, but 90 of them are still glowing a safe, steady blue. Nervously squeezing the slime, it all clicks. The calamity acted with a specific purpose. Flashing a relieved smile, the kid thanks to Grumpy Kitten for saving his farm. As a reward, he fires up the Blessing of Abundance to grow some next-level, super potent catnip. But the joy doesn't last. He practically cries seeing all the hard work his crew put in just vanish into thin air. Genuinely stressing out now, the MC worries that the other factions might have gotten wiped out too. Asking if there's any kind of cure, Park shakes his head. No easy way out of this one. Pushing for answers, the kid learns that the so-called legendary fix was taken straight to the grave. Right in the middle of his panic, he feels the hamster going crazy inside his shirt. Thrashing around like mad, the little guy ignores the kid trying to calm him down during this tense moment. Then the hamster settles into a very specific pose, making a cute little noise of satisfaction. Stopping dead in his tracks, Chansu's eyes go wide. A realization hits him so hard it freezes his blood. Going into full panic mode, he screams out that the goddess's sacred temple might be the actual target. Meanwhile, over at the flower-filled temple, the radish goddess is just floating around, looking peaceful and sweet. Trying to help, Doji mentions that the MC is super strong, but the chick just trashes the kid, calling him useless. Flapping its wings, the bird complains about the hero's audacity to actually shelter a cat on the property. Puffed up and acting tough, the little guy swears he's gonna give that lazy farmer a massive lecture, except out of nowhere, the temple's sky starts cracking. Doji instantly panics, sensing something terrible. A sinister noise creeps out from the pillars, forcing Ari to drop right into a defensive stance. Shaking with fear, the little chick asks what that was, a cold chill running down its spine. Right then, a dark purple energy crawls across the floor, giving off the mouth-watering scent of a massive feast. Hypnotized by the smell, the little pig starts drooling, but Ari screams that it's an obvious trap. Trying to play the tough guy, the bird tells the thing to scram. The shadow just lets out a bone-chilling laugh, squawking at the top of its lungs. Ari threatens to creep, while the chubby pig is only thinking about its next meal. Using her commanding voice, the goddess orders them to stop immediately, warning them to take cover. Unleashing her true power, the deity transforms into an incredibly majestic flaming phoenix. Fired up, Doji grows massive too, sprouting tusks and turning into a giant, battle-ready boar. Flying high, the phoenix lights up the whole area, while the boar snorts down below, ready to charge. Declaring the enemy's doom, they both rush the dark energy in an explosive display of raw power. Stuck in the middle of the chaos, Ari is just standing there shocked at how ridiculously OP his friends actually are. After the impact, everything goes dead quiet. Both mascots crash to the floor, dizzy as hell. Bragging, the chick raises its foot, fully convinced its own powers would just save the day. But the shadow isn't dead. It hits back with a massive purple blast that sends them both flying. Knocked out cold, the pig and the bird are left belly up, seeing stars. Reverting to her normal form, the goddess scrambles over in a panic to make sure they're okay. Watching the shadow creep closer, she realizes with dread that this thing is way worse than she thought. And in the blink of an eye, the temple's barrier starts shattering like cheap porcelain. Out of options, the queen considers burning through all the points the kid sweated blood to collect. Channeling an SOS, she bolts straight toward the portal to summon the MC. Suddenly, a silver flash tears through the darkness. Rohan appears out of nowhere, blocking the lethal strike. Even so, the goddess doesn't stop. Completely focused on warning the kid about the attack on the farm. Locked in, the old master delivers a clean slash, releasing an energy wave that splits the smoke right down the middle. An insane explosion lights up the temple, yet the mascots are still passed out cold on the floor. By the time the light fades, the purple mist is history, leaving the forest in dead silence. A blue seal forms in the air, confirming the threat has officially been cleared from the area. Sighing in relief, the deity slaps the lazy little pig a few times to wake him up. Stepping out from the trees, Rohan wipes his blade and sheaths it with ridiculous elegance. Watching his back, she's beyond impressed, realizing the swordsman just saved all their lives. Bowing in deep gratitude, the queen thanks him, but Rohan tells her to save it for the MC. Casually sitting down on the stone floor, the master decides this is a perfect spot for a nap. Pulling an apple from his pocket, he takes a bite, casually mentioning how great the air is up here. Opening one eye, the pig sniffs out the feast, while the chick wakes up ready to throw hands. Confused, the bird stops yelling once it sees the pig happily snacking away, just not getting it. Explaining everything, the goddess tells them to chill, confirming the old man is one of the good guys. Then, a panicked scream echoes out. The MC comes sprinting in, tripping over himself to see if they survived. Stopping dead in front of them, looking pale as a ghost, he asks if anyone got hurt by the seals. Puffing up its feathers, the chick curses the kid out for leaving them alone to deal with those shadows. Smacking the bird, the goddess defends our hero, all while Doji just keeps stuffing his face. Seeing the old man surrounded by shadow remnants, it clicks for the MC, and he thanks him instantly. Busting out a massive bow, he cries tears of relief, but the old man warns him not to celebrate just yet. Taking another bite of his apple, Rohan mutters that he sliced those things up because they were ruining his peace and quiet. Relieved by the backup, the kid tries to relax, thinking the worst is over, but the master shuts that down fast. Freezing up immediately, Chansu stammers out a confused question, asking if he didn't just wipe out the parasites. Staring the kid down with a heavy gaze, Rohan states that this was nothing but an appetizer. Pointing up at the sky, he warns that those things are definitely coming back. Enjoyed the video? Drop a like.